Good morning, Manitoba. Welcome to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass, in today for Marcy Marcusa. And with me are Corey Funk, our studio director. May McKillop is our technician today. Brad Lillies is producing our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. And Megan Ketchison is in the newsroom with the CBC headlines.
Well, good morning. It's getting more difficult for people with mental health and addictions issues to find low-barrier housing in Winnipeg. Last week, we told you that the Adirondack apartment building on Sargent Avenue is up for sale. Now, CBC News has learned 2 other buildings in the West End have been put into receivership and are also for sale. Those buildings were used by outreach groups to house people from encampments. And after 11 years of planning, lawsuits, and delays, a proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is coming back before City Councillor. Developer Andrew Marquess has been planning a residential development on the land in Fort Garry since 2013. City planning officials are now backing his proposal, but Marquess says he's unhappy with some of the recommended changes to the plan. And I'll have more at 6:30.
Thanks, Megan.
Thank you.
That's Megan Ketchison from the CBC Manitoba newsroom. Well, here's what's coming up on the first hour of the show. At least one major company says its workers won't get promoted unless they return to the office. We'll talk to a management expert about some of the ways businesses are encouraging in-person work. Manitobans from Sudan say it's hard to see their friends and families back home struggling with the civil war and the hunger crisis. We'll have more on that after 6:30 as well. A recent study finds poor sleepers feel much older than they really are. We'll hear from a sleep expert on how to avoid this pitfall. But first, potitza. Hot cross buns and pasca. Unfortunately, we won't be eating these Easter treats here in the studio, but we will be chatting with a bakery owner about these delicious pastries and the special memories they can stir up. A quick look at the forecast. For Winnipeg, sunny today with a high of +1. Clear tonight, low -11. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow with snow starting in the afternoon. Pretty gusty as well. Gusts up to 40 kilometers an hour with a high of +1. For Brandon, mainly sunny today. Light breeze, high -2. A few clouds tonight and breezy, low -9. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow with snow starting around noon.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. The Last Dinner Party have had a huge year with a #1 album and winning the BBC Sound of 2024 contest. They'll tell you about bringing a sense of occasion and joy to their live shows.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Ukrainian officials say Russia launched a new type of guided bomb at the city of Kharkiv. It can be controlled in the air. It is powerful and it's relatively cheap. At least one person was killed in the Russian attack on Wednesday. 19 others were wounded, including 4 children. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
At the scene of the latest Russian shelling in Kharkiv, Vladislav had bandaged, searches through what's left of his flat. Outside the 5-story apartment, a crowd looks on at their now destroyed homes. Vladislav's girlfriend Katerina says it was only by chance that she survived. This latest airstrike has concerned the local authorities because they believe a new type of bomb was used. Vladimir Timoshko is head of the Kharkiv Regional Police. This is something between a guided aerial bomb, which the Russians have used recently, he says. It's a flying bomb. Kharkiv's regional governor is Oleg Sinokhov. He agrees this was a universal intertype flying bomb. The Russians decided to test their modified bombs on the residents of the houses, he says. The bomb is significant because it can be controlled by soldiers like a cruise missile, but is cheaper to produce. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned the attack as Russian terror. Russia denies targeting civilians. Anna Cunningham for CBC News, London.
Ireland says it is intervening in South Africa's controversial case against the Israel-Hamas war. The International Court of Justice is examining whether genocide is being committed in Gaza. Ireland's third-party intervention seeks to widen the definition of genocide to include the restriction of aid. Foreign Minister Micheál Martin says Israel's actions are collective punishment on Palestinians for the crimes of Hamas. According to aid agencies, only 20% of the needed aid is reaching Gaza. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights says Israel bears significant responsibility for that. Volker Turk says famine is a serious risk in Gaza, and he says Israel has obligations as the occupying power.
So that brings up the question, with all the restrictions that we currently see, whether there is a plausible claim to be made that starvation is or may be used as a method of war.
Israel says the United Nations is to blame for the lack of aid reaching Palestinians. The public inquiry into foreign interference is hearing from witnesses who have been harassed by foreign actors. Yesterday, people representing Chinese, Sikh, Iranian, Russian, and Uyghur communities were testifying. Janice McGregor joins us from the Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what concerns are they raising?
Marcia, anyone who went into this inquiry skeptical about whether foreign interference is that big a deal had their eyes opened by this lead-off panel yesterday afternoon that painfully, anxiously, with evident frustration recounted how hostile actors from China, India, Iran, and Russia harass their communities for political gain. People like Mehmet Toti, from the Uyghur Rights Advocacy Project. Under former leader Erin O'Toole, Conservatives championed the recognition of a genocide against Uyghurs in China, adopted policies that advocates like Toti asked for, like action against Beijing's use of forced labor. But as this inquiry is going to probe, Conservatives believe they were targeted for that in the 2021 election. They believe they lost votes as a result. Toti told the inquiry that since then, he sees the official opposition pulling back from its previous commitment to his cause.
And a new leader of the Conservative Party has yet to mention Uyghur genocide in the parliament, in compare to Erin O'Toole. And so you can see that difference.
A troubling suggestion that not only is foreign interference present in Canada, it's working and shaping our politics.
Today, the inquiry is hearing from Canada's election officials. What more can you tell us about that?
No one's suggesting that the last two federal elections were stolen per se, but it's a question about whether hostile actors are putting fingers on the scale. Some Conservatives have argued that in 8 or 9 ridings with large Chinese diaspora populations, they did as punishment for their hawkish foreign policy positions. This inquiry has to figure out whether that's true, and if so, how? Because if malicious actors are able to tilt close races in the future, that's a serious problem for our democracy.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. CBC News has confirmed 4 Ontario school boards are suing Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta. They allege the social media companies designed their apps for compulsive use, and they are deliberately hurting students. The public school boards in Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa, and the Toronto Catholic School Board have all launched separate lawsuits. Combined, they're suing for a total of $4.5 billion. Yellowknife is preparing for future fire seasons. It's taking a closer look at what happened last summer. The entire city had to be evacuated. Now Yellowknife officials are conducting a review. Last night it heard from residents about what worked and what didn't. Sarah Krumlowski reports.
Hopefully there'll be some boats rocked and some heads rolling.
Barry Taylor was one of nearly 100 Yellowknifers who attended the public engagement session. He was there to talk about last summer's evacuation. Like most attendees, he has a lot of criticisms of how Yellowknife was evacuated. And, like most attendees, he said it comes down to a lack of communication.
The only people that really knew what was going on, I believe, were the people in government, the bureaucracy. They looked after each other, but they forgot about everybody else.
Up until the evacuation was announced, the public was told that if the fire reached the south end of the city, the plan was to shelter in other, safer parts of town until they got the fire under control. Residents got no advance notice that an evacuation might be happening or what it would look like.
There has to be more done this year.
Alexandra Giroux isn't happy with last year's evacuation either. But what she really wants to see is better planning for the upcoming Northwest Territories fire season.
How do you fire smart your house? What do you need to have in an evacuation kit? Hey, here are some resources for you.
The after-action review is being conducted by KPMG on behalf of the City of Yellowknife. They said that public consultation is part of the initial information gathering stage of the review. The report is set to be completed in June. Sarah Kremlowski, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Investigators searching above and below the water at the site of the bridge collapse in Baltimore are still looking to find out why the cargo ship collided with the bridge, and they're still looking to find 6 men believed to be dead. For more, we go to the CBC's Chris Reyes in Dundalk, Maryland. And Chris, where is the investigation headed today?
Well, we know that investigators and engineers will be back on the Dali today, the massive cargo ship that hit that bridge. And Marcia, they're doing 2 things. One, interviewing the crew members who are still on board, as well as the pilots that were in charge of guiding that vessel out of the harbor. And 2, gathering more material and evidence. They've requested the ship's maintenance and inspection records. They're still looking for any other camera footage from inside the ship that may have captured the moments leading up to the crash. They've also inspected the cargo on board. They've identified that 56 containers have hazardous materials in them. We found out yesterday that they have the black box, and they've been able to piece a basic timeline of the event. Investigators are expected to be on site for the next week or so. A preliminary report will be released in 2 to 4 weeks.
As the work gets done, the search continues for the victims in the bridge collapse. What do we know about that?
2 victims from that construction crew on the bridge were pulled out of the water last night, still in their vehicles. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has been speaking directly with families to give them updates. He said supporting them remains his top priority.
We transitioned from search and rescue to recovery. We need to bring a sense of closure and comfort to the families, and we take that very seriously.
Marcia, today the search continues for 4 other members of that construction crew that plunged into the water when the bridge collapsed.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes reporting from Dundalk, Maryland.
This ain't Texas. Ain't no hold 'em.
She gave us this preview after the Super Bowl. Tomorrow we get the rest of Beyonce's new country album. It's called Cowboy Carter. Beyonce released a list of the tracks on her Instagram account. It includes a reference to groundbreaking country performer Linda Martell. She became the first Black woman to play the Grand Ole Opry. And there is also a hint Beyonce may pay tribute to Dolly Parton on the album. We'll find out tomorrow. That's World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Sweet redemption, passing time, yeah.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa. Here's what's coming up on this hour of the show. Use the stick or the carrot. Some businesses might be testing out the former when it comes to encouraging workers to come back into the office. People from Winnipeg's Sudanese community are concerned about their loved ones back home who are facing famine. We'll have that story after 6:30. A new study says if we don't get enough sleep, we might feel up to a decade older. We'll talk with a sleep expert on that. But first, potsitsa, hot cross buns, and pasca. We won't be eating these Easter treats here in the studio, but we will be chatting with a bakery owner about those pastries and the memories they stir up. That's all coming up on Information Radio. 11 minutes after 6 o'clock, time for news headlines with Megan Ketchison.
Well, good morning. The University of Winnipeg says there's no reason to believe personal information was leaked in what it calls a criminal cyber attack. U of W President Todd Mondor said at a town hall yesterday the school shut down some critical systems after it noticed the breach. Mondor says the university wants to have its systems back up and running by next week. And it's getting more difficult for people with mental health and addictions issues to find low-barrier housing in Winnipeg. Last week, we told you that the Adirondack apartment building on Sargent was up for sale. Now, CBC has learned 2 other buildings in the West End that have been put into receivership are also up for sale, and those are buildings used by outreach groups to help people house people from encampments. And we'll have more at 6:30.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Megan Ketchison in our newsroom. And now in the studio with me is Corey Funk. Good morning,
Good
Corey.
morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good. I want some Pascha real bad right
I
now
know.
already. I've already had Pascha. I'm come from like a Mennonite Ukrainian background, so it's just Pascha everywhere. Sprinkles all over the floor in my house right now. It's great.
You know, it would go so well with this coffee I've got right now.
Ooh, I know. I should have brought some Pascha to work. What was I thinking?
I know.
Anyways, let's take a look at your weather right now. I feel bad for Abby. He usually does weather because he's had kind of bad news all week, but then I finally get to deliver the good news here. Above zero today, 1 degree we're heading up to is the high. -9 right now at the Forks, heading for a high of 1 here in Winnipeg, and sunny, which is exciting. And here's the world's easiest forecast for you to remember for your Easter weekend. So Friday, 1 degree. Saturday, high of 1 degrees. Sunday, high of 1. So when in doubt, assume it's gonna be 1 degree. It might be some snow tomorrow, a little cloudy Saturday, mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. So that's kind of your looking ahead weekend forecast. I'll have more of a regional forecast for you in about half an hour. But right now, -9, heading for a high of 1 today at the Forks and the sunny here in Winnipeg. Looking to your traffic, your commute, not too bad right now. Pretty good running in on the sidewalks this morning. Nice and grippy from that little bit of snow that's left. Might be a little more puddly on the way home, I'm guessing, today. Haven't heard anything about the highways or the roads yet. But if you do see something going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
It's 6:13 and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass. Well, when you think about Easter feasts, what treats come to mind? What do you taste? What do you smell? For our next guest, it's freshly baked potica. That's a traditional Slovenian pastry. Kristina Majowski is co-owner of the White Birch Bakery, which has been buzzing with activity ahead of the big holiday. Kristina spoke yesterday with CBC's Chloe Friesen.
Now let's begin with potica. Describe it for us.
Oh, potica. Potica is a traditional Slovenian festive sort of treat. It is a sweet bread that is the dough is rolled out, and then a beautiful, luscious walnut cream with some rum and sugar is spread on top, rolled, proved, and baked. Once baked, we sugar it with icing sugar and enjoy.
That sounds so delicious. And it's also beautiful. I was looking at pictures earlier, just due to that rolled nature of it. When you cut it, it just looks gorgeous.
Yes, it's usually done during Easter and Christmas with a nut filling, but you'll find a lot of Slovenian homes will do it with meat filled or even with herbs, potatoes, all kinds. But during Easter, it's traditionally a lovely walnut roll.
Lovely. Now, we've been talking about how different cultures have different Easter pastries, and you sell a lot of different pastries at your bakery. What else will people find at White Birch Bakery for Easter?
For Easter, we'll have decorated sugar cookies. We'll also have decorated medinjaki. Medinjaki is another Slovenian cookie. It's a honey cookie. Those will be Easter-themed. Definitely Pascha. You'll find Pascha there. You'll also find hot cross buns, which are a favorite for families throughout Winnipeg. And then we'll have potica, apple strudel. From a Slovenian side, we always have almond crescents on the table, some Linzer cookies, and then, of course, a variety of cinnamon buns and croissants and all of those favorites.
You're making me so hungry. Now,
You're welcome down anytime.
I was looking at your Instagram account and your website, and I noticed that you put raisins in your Pascha. I've grown up with Pascha, and I know that the raisin debate can be pretty controversial. What's your case for the raisins?
It's a love or hate. Shannon, the other owner, we love raisins. And then in our Pascha, we put a little bit of lemon as well. So it just umps that flavor. But yes, it is truly kind of a love and hate. But we do love raisins. So you'll find raisins at our bakery.
Now, how quickly do these Easter pastries sell out at your bakery? Like, how busy are you right now?
The season is wonderful. We're busy. The best way to get your Pascha, hot crust buns, or anything Easter is to call and place your order. That way you're never going to lose out. But they do go quickly. Daily, they go quickly, yes.
What memories come up for you personally when you think about celebrating Easter and the food that goes along with it?
Traditionally in our family, we would start probably a month before baking in the kitchen with my mom and my sister, and then fill that freezer up with all kinds of baked goods. In my family, in my culture, it's a really big deal. Easter morning, we would wake up, we would go to church with our basket, sometimes Saturday even, and have our food blessed. Then we'd come home, and for breakfast we would have the blessed food along with the potitza and all of the sweets that we had made the month before. And we would just spend the day with the family.
Yeah, so you bring that food, those baked goods that you've prepared, and you bring them to the church service.
Easter eggs, sausages, ham, all the things that you're going to share for that Easter breakfast. You bring either a portion of it or all of it. Some of the baskets are quite large. And then depending also on the size of your family, and then you share that food with your family and extended family and friends.
Oh, that's beautiful. What do you hear from customers about their Easter memories as they're getting some of these treats in your bakery?
Today we had a gentleman that touched my heart. He came in and he bought a potitza, and he hadn't had one for a very long time, and it brought back memories of when his mother used to make it for him when he was young and little from Slovenia. So that's the best thing for bakers, to be able to impart that memory of a long time ago of your mother or your grandmother baking you something and wanting that flavor and that staying with you. So that was special today.
How does it feel to play a role in people's celebrations and their memories in that way?
It's fantastic to bring joy to people. It's a win-win. They bring joy to us. We bring joy to them. It's a beautiful circle.
Now, how are you and your family going to celebrate Easter this year, Christina? Do you close the bakery?
We close on Easter Day. We are open Good Friday because we are a sourdough bakery, so sourdough does not sleep. But Easter, we will be closed. Starts off with church, and then definitely the family comes over and we share in the breakfast feast and spend the day.
Sounds so nice. And you know what? I would try that Pascha with or without raisins. No preference. Just would go so good with my coffee right now. Christina Majowski is co-owner of the White Birch Bakery. That's on Henderson Highway. And she was speaking with CBC's Chloe Friesen. Well, new music now from Winnipeg singer-songwriter Field Guide. This one's called Rootin' For Ya. From Winnipeg, that was new music from Field Guide, that song called Rootin' For Ya. It's 22 minutes after 6 o'clock, -9 at the Forks, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa. The technology company Dell recently issued a bit of an ultimatum to its employees. They can continue to work remotely, but they won't get promoted if they do. It's just one example of how businesses are trying to balance flexible arrangements while encouraging in-person work. Joining us now with her thoughts on this is Nita Chinzer, Associate Professor in the Department of Management at the University of Guelph. Good morning.
Good morning. Just to get us all on the same page, Dell is saying that return to work means that you have to come in 3 days of the week. You can still work remotely 2 days of the week. But if you choose to work remotely 100% of the time, know that this is going to be a career-limiting move. So I think we are opening up Pandora's box, but let's do this.
Okay. Well, so what do you think of this strategy by Dell telling people they can keep working remotely 2 days a week, but forget about being promoted if you only work at home?
Yeah, so what I find is, now I'm a management person, I find this actually a little bit refreshing because at least I know what the rules are. So at least I'm getting cause and consequence. And if we think about what was happening even pre-pandemic, when there were some people in the office and some people at home, the people at home were being overlooked for promotion opportunities, they were being overlooked for training and development opportunities, and they were being overlooked for leadership opportunities. And we had plenty of research, even pre-COVID, that said that this was a career-limiting move. So I find what Dell is doing is putting it on people's radars, saying that we have a return-to-work requirement 3 days in the week. But if you want to work from home, if you're making the choice to work from home 100% of the time, know it's a career-limiting move. And in reality, not everyone's looking for a promotion. But some people are like, all right, I'm good with that. And others are like, oh, wait a minute. If this is a career-limiting move, I am looking for a promotion, then maybe I need to approach this differently.
And why would a business like
the
Dell?
honesty.
Yeah, why would a business like Dell make a move like that?
Yeah, so a lot of businesses are doing return-to-work mandates. And a lot of it comes down to the fact that there's two components of our performance at work. One component is called task performance. So, am I getting through my checklist? Am I doing my job well? The other component is called contextual performance. Am I sharing ideas? Am I advancing someone else's work? Am I helping coworkers? Am I finding gaps in what's going on? Am I communicating and sharing information? And that's called contextual performance. And what we found is people have been at home, now some of them for almost 3 or 4 years, and companies like Dell that are in highly volatile, highly changing environments, they've had people who were good at their individual jobs, but not good at doing that contextual stuff when they're working remotely. And that's impacting the company's ability to really pivot, especially, IT has been going through all kinds of layoffs and changes with ChatGPT and machine learning and globalization. So these companies are saying, we need to get this heard and kind of move them in the same direction, pivot their ideas and get them to share and find new gaps for us so that we could be successful as a company.
And so what
I
other...
actually see the company argument here.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's interesting. What other incentives or disincentives have you heard of companies using?
Yeah, so the disincentive would be, Elon Musk famously said, come in 40 hours of the week at least, or you can find employment elsewhere. Right? That's a fear-based philosophy, too. That generally doesn't seem to work. But the things that I've seen work, donut Mondays don't work and pizza Fridays don't work. What I've seen work is companies that are saying, I want you to come in to the office and I'm going to make that return to the office meaningful for you. And what they're doing here, unfortunately, is they're taking away choice, but they're giving you a more meaningful experience. They're saying your team's coming in on Tuesdays and Wednesdays or Mondays and Thursdays. And when you come in, 100% of your team is in the office. We're going to ban Zoom calls, meet each other. Everyone is there. So now going into the office is actually meaningful because the people we work with are there. The ideas that we need to share are all part of that day. So we still have a couple of days to do our independent work, but saying going into the office is important. The government here kind of messed up on that when they initially did a return to work mandate. They said everyone has to go in for at least one day, and people got to pick the day that they went in. So if I went in on a Monday, 80% of my coworkers were at home. Well, what am I going in for then? I'm just going to go in to an empty office and spend my whole day on Zoom? Of course, that's not meaningful. But the companies that are doing it right are saying everyone's coming in on the same day. We're going to ban Zoom calls. You're going to meet each other, and let's actually do that contextual stuff that we need.
Meanwhile, a lot of people are attached to that, hybrid setup. What advice would you have for people who want to keep working that way?
Definitely. So I think remote work and flexible time are two different things, and they are actually two different things. So remote work is about where you work. One, you can go to the office, you could be at home, where are you physically working? So remote work is not working in the office, but flex time is your start and end time of the day. And you still have flexibility with that. So you can still go back if you're requested to go to the office 2 days of the week, 3 days of the week. You can still go back and say, I prefer to start at 7, I prefer to start at 8, I prefer to start at 9. I might need to leave at 2 to go pick up a kid, and then I'll continue the remaining hours at home remotely. There's still room for negotiation, so don't feel pigeonholed in. No one's removing flex time. They're just saying we don't necessarily want you working from home 100% of the time.
So yeah, good to think about what you want and ask for that. But what do you see about the, as the future of hybrid work? Do you think it's here to stay, or?
Yeah, I definitely think it's here to stay. I think the 5-day work week is dead for some employers. It's still going to happen there's a lot of jobs where you just can't work from home. So it's still going to happen in construction and food services and accommodations and healthcare. You still have to go in 100% of the time. But for those people who are in a privileged position to have remote work, they might only be going in 3 days of the week or 4 days of the week max, right? I think that the 100% work from home is likely going to be declining to a select few companies, a select few employers, and a select few employees.
Wow. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. Thanks so much for joining us, Nita.
No worries. Have a great day.
You too. Nita Chinzer is an associate professor in the Department of Management at the University of Guelph. Well, we're coming up on local news time. It's -9 right now at the Forks, going up to a high of +1 and sunny today. Haven't seen that sun nice and clear for a while it was also warm. So looking forward to that. And still to come on Information Radio, Manitobans from Sudan say it's hard to see their friends and families back home struggling with the civil war and the hunger crisis. Also, a recent study finds poor sleepers feel much older than they really are. That's all coming up on Information Radio. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. It's 6:30, clear skies and -9, sunny and 1 today, but there is snow on the way tomorrow. The University of Winnipeg says there is no reason to believe personal information was leaked in what it calls a criminal cyber attack. U of W President Todd Mondor said at a town hall meeting yesterday the school shut down some critical systems after it noticed the breach. Mondor said the university wants it to have its systems up and running by next week.
Staff has been working around the clock to understand the consequences of the breach and to bring back services in a way that preserves the safety of our entire system and prevents the threat actor from gaining readmittance.
The university did not provide any details as to the nature of the attack. It's brought in experts to help deal with the situation. The current semester has been extended and exams have been delayed by a week. It's getting more difficult for people with mental health and addictions issues to find low-barrier housing in Winnipeg. Last week, we told you that the Adirondack apartment building on Sargent Avenue is up for sale. Now, CBC News has learned 2 other buildings in the West End have been put into receivership and are also for sale. All 3 properties belong to Patrick Penner or his wife, Karen Harper Penner. The buildings were used by outreach groups to house people from encampments. St. Boniface Street Links is one of the groups that worked with the owners. Executive Director Marion Willis says landlords need to be supported to help keep people housed.
It's actual services in the building to prevent the fires and to prevent the violence and the drug use and so on.
CBC News tried contacting the Penners, but it did not receive a response. The city councillor for the area says she's worried the loss of these buildings could make homelessness in the neighborhood worse. Well, after 11 years of planning, lawsuits, and delays, a proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is coming back before City Council. Developer Andrew Marquess has been planning a residential development on this land in Fort Garry since 2013. City planning officials are now backing his proposal, but Marquess says he's unhappy with some of the recommended changes to the plan. They involve how far away he'd have to build from the CN rail line.
This surprises me because I didn't think there were any issues. It's not 11th hour and 59th minute. It's kind of like the horse is out of the barn.
The plan for Fulton Grove calls for 1,900 units in apartments, townhouses, and detached homes. The proposal comes before City Council's City Centre Community Committee on April the 4th. People in Manitoba's Sudanese community are worried about friends and family in their home country. The civil war in Sudan has triggered what United Nations calls one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. The country has been in a civil war since April 2023. The UN says nearly 28 million people in the region are facing acute food insecurity, and 3.7 million children suffer malnutrition. Ruben Garang is the president of the Council of South Sudanese Communities in Manitoba. He's constantly worried about his loved ones back home.
People who are here, shoulder a lot of the burden because you have to do what you can, to take care of your relative, but also it takes a toll on you emotionally because you're dealing with the news constantly, news of displacement, news of killing, news of death.
Garang believes the international community is ignoring the situation in Sudan as it focuses on other conflicts around the world. Ireland is looking to weigh in on a controversial court case against Israel. It's South Africa's claim before the International Court of Justice that Israel's military campaign in the Gaza constitutes an act of genocide, and the word genocide that has Ireland announcing plans to intervene. It wants a broader definition. Lauren Comato reports.
The intention to destroy a people in part or whole based on their ethnicity, race, nationality, or religion is a prerequisite to proving genocide. It's an extraordinarily high legal threshold, and Ireland's foreign minister, Micheál Martin, says Ireland wants to expand how genocide is determined. While condemning as war crimes both the October 7th Hamas attacks and Israel's military response in Gaza, where more than 32,000 people are said to have been killed and the entire population is experiencing food insecurity, Martin says Ireland will ask judges to consider if genocide is being committed by collectively punishing an entire population. Some legal experts say if there is proof of ongoing violations of international law, that could provide the genocidal intention necessary to prove the crime. Martin says he believes there's a case to answer, although any hearing is likely years away. Lauren Comato for CBC News, Amsterdam.
And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
That's Megan Ketchison from the CBC Newsroom. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, worldwide on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. So hi to everyone who's listening to us on there, as well as on the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass, filling in for Marcy Marcusa today, and our show director, Corey Funk, joins us now with the weather and traffic.
Yes, and I'm very excited to be given some more or less good news after this kind of mini sort of cold snap we just had the past few days. Above zero today in Winnipeg, so -9 right now, but it's going to warm up to 1 degree and sunny today. So very excited. I'm very excited for my little guy to go to pick him up from daycare and have him stomp through puddles on the way home. It's like my new favorite thing.
It's been a while since we've seen it go above zero, hasn't it?
Yes, I'm very excited about that. It's going to feel good to feel that sun on my face as well. Very exciting. And it's actually very similar across the province as well this morning in terms of your regional forecast. Thompson right now, -15. You're heading for a high. You're not going to quite break above zero. -1, but sunny for you. So still going to feel that sun in your face. Brandon, similar. -15, heading for a high of -2 and sunny. Dauphin, -13, heading for a high of -1, sunny for you as well. Hot spot right now in the province. McCreary's at -8. Lynn Lake, you're still at a very chilly -23 right now. But right now at the Forks, -9, heading for a high today of 1 degree and sunny. Looking to the commute, got a call from Dan on a bike. who said it's a bit of a smorgasbord of conditions out there for him.
But not so tasty.
Not so tasty. We are actually, so a little bit of snow, a little bit of ice, a little bit of blowing snow, but overall pretty clear on the rapid transit bike route, more or less. Thanks for that call, Dan. And we were talking about in the control room, is smorgasbord a Manitoba word? Did you grow, because you grew up not in Manitoba?
No, that's pretty worldwide.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't know for sure if it was just a weird Manitoba word, but okay, that's good to hear.
Maybe you'll see more smorgasbords here.
Yeah, maybe the concentration of smorgasbords is bigger here in Manitoba, because I grew up with a lot of smorgasbords on a Sunday.
Oh, lucky you.
And it's just a fun word to say.
It's a great one.
Anyways, if you have anything else out there, if it's a smorgasbord of weather for you or throwing off your commute, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey. That's CBC's Corey Funk, and he is also our show director. Well, it's time now for some business news. Crystalie Ramlakan is here with the CBC Business Report. Good morning, Crystalie.
Hello, good morning, Emily.
So business leaders in this country say they're worried about the housing situation. What else are they saying?
Well, business leaders see the housing crisis as the biggest risk to the economy. And that's according to a new survey from KPMG Canada. And it found 94% of respondents agreed that high housing costs and a lack of supply are the top risk, and that housing should be a main focus in the upcoming federal budget. So the online survey questioned 534 businesses last month, and 87% said housing issues are forcing businesses to actually budget for higher labor costs because they have to pay more to attract better talent. So for more on this, here's Vivian Chan, who is with KPMG.
Small, medium-sized businesses. They operate on much thinner margins. They are more at risk, I would say, to major changes in market forces. And so when they are already feeling the effects, basically everyone is feeling the effects of these increased costs of living, how do we expect these small, medium businesses to continue to thrive and to drive the Canadian economy that we have? And so it's not just ensuring everyone has the right type of housing. It's also ensuring that we continue to feed a diverse and resilient economic engine for the rest of the country.
The survey found almost 90% of businesses want to see more public-private collaboration. They would like to see tax measures to make housing payments more affordable, such as making mortgage interest tax deductible. Now, the federal government has introduced some measures, such as a GST rebate for rental housing construction. But, Emily, it only has a limited direct control on that file.
Wow. Well, and speaking about high demand, Canada's population has grown at a record pace. What's that going to mean for the economy going forward?
Yes, you're right. So the population grew by 1.3 million people over the past year to almost 41 million now. And that's the fastest annual pace since 1957. Only 2.4% of the increase came from net births, and the rest was driven by international migration, primarily foreign workers and students. Now, population gains helped Canada's economy amid elevated interest rates. And the surge, strained infrastructure and services, worsening housing shortages, and sent rents soaring. Now, with plans to cut the number of temporary residents and international students, last year will likely mark the peak of the immigration-driven population boom here in Canada. And economists are projecting new restrictions will slash the rate of annual population growth by half or more. So for more on this, here's Benjamin Reitzis, who is with BMO Capital Markets.
Very strong population growth is quite positive. I mean, more people equals more spending equals more demand. It's underpinned the Canadian economy in 2023, and the economy was pretty soft through most of the year, and it would have been even softer if we didn't have the level of population growth that we did see. So it does reinforce the fact that on a per capita basis, the economy is still quite weak, but it tells you what some of the benefits are of having that level of immigration. And as it does slow down over the next few years, it does paint a somewhat more challenging growth backdrop.
So anxiety about a deteriorating standard of life has forced the government to scale down its immigration ambition. And economists say it's a lesson for advanced economies relying on newcomers to stave off economic decline.
Yeah. And that decline, we've seen it have an effect on the restaurant industry. How are economic pressures affecting restaurants lately?
Well, a new report says Canadians are eating out less often, suggesting consumers are feeling the squeeze of inflation and higher interest rates. So the 2024 Canadian Diner Trends report from Toronto-based software firm Touch Bistro found a quarter of respondents dined out at least once a week. And that is actually down from the 38% in 2022. Now, even though the average spend is about the same, it's probably because of just higher menu prices. And this is all despite Canadians dining out less. Now, when people do go out, though, people want to see old customs return, apparently. So the survey found Canadians overwhelmingly prefer a human connection with their dining experience, with 85% of respondents indicating they prefer a paper menu to a QR code or ordering at a kiosk.
That's interesting. You know, I do like the bigger menu, actually. I just find I can see it better and take in all the information a little better than on that screen on my phone. How about you?
I agree. And sometimes I don't want to always have my phone on me or bring my phone everywhere. It's kind of nice to just, if you're going to go out for dinner with family or friends, to leave your phone, at home or in the car and just concentrate on your experience with the people that you're with. And I certainly don't like the kiosk because I like to talk to someone and, maybe ask a question about the meal or the food or something like that.
Yep, I totally agree. So what's happening in the market so far this morning, Crystalie?
So in Europe, markets are higher, bouncing back from a lackluster momentum earlier this week. So Germany, the UK, and France are all up. In Asia, Japan stocks fell the most among Asian markets, while Australian stocks hit a record high, helped by a boost from mining shares. Japan is down. Shanghai and Hong Kong are both up. Oil is up $1.07 to $82.42 US per barrel. Gold is up $20.30 to $2,233 US per ounce. And the dollar is down almost 1/10 cent to 73.61 cents US.
Thanks, Crystalie.
Okay, thanks, Emily.
That was Crystalie Ramlakan with the CBC Business News. Coming up on 6:45, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM and 990 AM in Winnipeg, worldwide on the CBC Listen app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. The UN says the humanitarian crisis in Sudan has become one of the worst in recent history. Over 10 million people have been displaced, and with the famine looming, it's clear they need aid. Manitobans from the Sudanese community say they're watching this happen to their loved ones and feel helpless. CBC's Zubina Ahmed spoke with Mandela Quet, an active member of the local Sudanese community who works with youth.
I'm a member of the South Sudanese community. I'm originally born in South Sudan, and I'm also part of the community here. I'm very active in terms of organizing and mostly focused on youth engagement and youth empowerment. I'm involved in wherever they need me.
As somebody who is from Sudan, what do you feel about the current situation there?
Yes, I mean, from South Sudan, it's been going on for pretty much all my life. But I think that the people in the country do need to take accountability and make a resolution to come to terms for peaceful arrangement and to make sure that there's a rule of law, there's citizens are protected, and there's a transition from all this conflict that's been going on. It's a sad situation to be able to observe from here and to be able to try and make a difference, but really the power lies with the people in the country. They are the one who can really shift this around, and I add my voice to people asking for change.
As someone who grew up in Sudan, how do you remember Sudan?
I mean, for me, I was pretty young, but I know there was moments where you could see, military personnel, and there were moments of blockade where you had to present identification or present who you are, and there were times where you had to stay home for safety reasons, and there were obviously discrimination based on the ethnic background. Those are some of the things that I remember. Most of the time, there's a lot of tension. especially from the adults around me. And there was always a sense of cautious and what you should be doing and who you should be engaging with, even as a young child, at that time. Yeah, I mean, we immigrated to Canada with my parents and my siblings. So my parents came here as an immigrant. But through our journey, there were parts of it where we had to migrate from Sudan to Egypt, for refuge. And then from there, we sought, refugee from and support from different councils, and luckily Canada accepted us, and we came here pretty young. So we immigrated here with our family, and it was a culture shock for me because I really didn't have any sense of what Canada looks like beside the little that I knew from my parents. But for me as a young person, it was more of a rapid transition because I was able to get into school, I was able to make friends and have family. So for me, it was more a rapid transition, but I think for my parents it was much more challenging because their careers were halted, they didn't have those opportunities, and they pretty much had to start from scratch.
How do you think the mood is right now here in the community amongst the youth here about what's happening in Sudan back right now?
Well, a lot of the youth want to make a difference, and they want to find a way how they can contribute, either through donation or economic empowerment, and adding their skills and sets. They would like to be able to be part of the decision making. They would like to be part of the solutions. And the challenge is that a lot of the individuals that are in charge, adults and saying back home, don't really have a channel for these young people to be engaged. So they're trying in their own ways, raising funds online and trying to engage with other young people. They have a lot of online activities where they are connecting with youth who are back home and who are feeling disheartened or going through these things. And they're trying to help in their own ways through their families, through their networks. But really, youth don't have a way to directly make a difference. And I do ask, and the community to be able to create some of those channels where youth can engage and help out in the best way they can. But they really do want to help. It's just there's no direct channel to be able to do that.
Do you still have some family and friends back there?
Yeah. Well, I still have family there, and right now the situation is dire for a lot of the people down there. Security is a big issue. There's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of people losing their lives, not just my family, but a lot of other people's family. And that's the primary concern for pretty much every South Sudanese community member, is that the security and the safety of their well-being of their loved ones is always at risk because there's no safety, there's no constitution to protect the people, there's no rules of law, to be able to do that. It's basically everyone for themselves. So security is a big issue.
Like when you talk to your family and friends back home, are they scared? Do they want to get out of Sudan?
Yeah, so the young ones, they want to leave, definitely. They want to make a difference. They want to go somewhere where they're safe. They have an opportunity for education and opportunity for advancement, change their life. I would say the older family members, they really want to make a difference. So they want to be part of the solution at this point, but also their safety is at risk. So they're doing it despite the risk. And they're holding that accountability, saying now it's their turn to make a difference. But I would say a lot of the young people don't want to be there. They want to leave, and if they do want to stay, that they want to stay where it's safe. And there's opportunities.
I think there's been a lot of criticism over the fact that there's been inadequate international aid to Sudan right now. Do you think so?
I do think that there's a challenge for that, just because the aid or the support is not getting to the people. Obviously for political reasons, and there's willpower, but as well as the leadership in South Sudan and parts of that country. So it's really the challenge of working together to be able to get the aid to the community and the people on the ground, because there's a lot of internally displaced people in South Sudan and that need help. It's not the lack of aid, it's just being able to get that. But also I understand that there's a political reasoning that that is also in the way for that.
Mandela Quet is a Sudanese Manitoban. He spoke with CBC's Zubina Ahmed.
Whether it's breaking news from around the world, across the country, or in your own hometown, it's all at your fingertips on the CBC News app. Get the top stories from where you live under the local tab, or watch video clips, live events, and the national on your smartphone or tablet. Get all the news you want, when you want it, where you want it, with the CBC News app. Download the app for free today.
It's 6:51 and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, worldwide on our CBC Manitoba YouTube page and on the CBC Listen app. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa. Well, if you've ever woken up feeling a bit creaky, then you might want to listen to this next story. New research says not getting enough sleep might make us feel 10 years older than we really are. Joining us now is Dr. Michael Mack, a psychiatrist and sleep specialist at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning, Emily.
So can you explain how insufficient sleep can make people feel older than their actual age?
When a person routinely sleeps fewer than 5 hours a night, and by the way, the recommended range for adults is 7 to 9 hours per night, the people that end up sleeping too little don't feel refreshed as they wake up, and they report consistently greater levels of sleepiness and fatigue throughout the day, and that appears to impact how people feel in relation to their chronological age. Like, people feel just much older when they're feeling fatigued and sleepy due to insufficient sleep.
And so how does it also affect people physically to not get enough sleep?
Yeah, like in addition to, the way that you feel, maybe less alertness and greater levels of sleepiness, lack of sleep causes a whole host of health conditions. So namely, increased rates of depression, increased risk of high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease, and even in most severe cases, increased risk of heart attacks.
So many risks. The study we mentioned earlier talked about feeling older, but can it actually make people age prematurely?
Yeah, there's some evidence that shows that curtailed sleep at nighttime can contribute to accelerated aging. The question is how much it's doing that based on, our lack of sleep. So when we sleep, our bodies and our brains are being restored. So during the daytime, as we get through our daily responsibilities and obligations, waste products are being created in our brain, and that gets shuttled away at nighttime in our sleep. And for muscles and bones, those get repaired at nighttime as well. So not having enough sleep means that those processes are being interfered with.
And you mentioned earlier that range of 7 to 9 hours, but how much sleep is considered enough for adults, since it can vary across the different age groups?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for folks who are of adult age, let's say 18 to 64, 7 to 9 hours appears to be an adequate range. But, the need for sleep and the duration of such does vary throughout your lifespan. As a newborn, because of, the high levels of growth that you see in babies, they need lots and lots of sleep, 17 hours a night. Teenagers are still growing, and they're doing a lot of learning. They need 8 to 10 hours a night. And then again, 7 to 9 hours for adults. And as you enter late life, 65 and above, that range goes to 7 to 8 hours.
8 to 10 hours for teenagers. So keep that in mind, parents, when they're sleeping in. They need that sleep. So what are some of the common signs that show maybe someone's not getting enough sleep?
Yeah, like if you're falling asleep by accident, not when you intend to do so, like let's say you're reading the newspaper, watching television, having to do makeup sleep on the weekends if you're working Monday to Friday, having to take more naps than usual, feeling irritable, and maybe, having changes in your mood, having lower motivation. Those would be the symptoms of sleep deprivation.
And sometimes I find it's harder to pay attention if I haven't got enough sleep. Is that another symptom?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, difficulties or maybe, taking longer to process information that you'd otherwise not struggle with.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. So what advice would you give to someone struggling to establish healthy sleep habits?
Yeah, having a focus on waking up every day at the same time. That ensures that you have a stable internal body clock, which means that you have better mood and better sleep. Your sleep time, though, when you go into your bedroom, that can vary from night to night, depending on what you did during the daytime. If you had a more relaxing day, you're probably going to not feel sleepy until later on, as compared to the days where you had a more strenuous day. I would avoid daytime naps. Napping during the daytime can take away from sleep at night, maybe giving you, trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. So if you have to nap during the daytime, I would keep them short and sweet, maybe less than half an hour, 20 minutes at the most.
No naps, but so many people, swear by napping during the day, especially those of us who work on this early morning shift. Should they not be taking a nap?
Well, it depends. Like, if you have enough energy to get through your day without the nap, I would just avoid doing so because our brain takes a very good tally of how much sleep we get per 24 hours. But, you're absolutely right. Some of us have to wake up really, really early, in which case, without a nap, we can't get through our day. In that situation, that's fine, but keep it short and sweet again.
Yeah, the 20-minute power nap is the sweet spot, I find.
Yeah, any more than that, you run the risk of going into a very deep stage of sleep, in which case when you wake up, you feel groggy and drunk. It actually takes maybe another half an hour to get out of that slow, relaxed kind of brainwave activity.
Oh, I've been there. It's almost like jet lag. You're right. Well, thanks so much for joining us with this interesting subject.
Thanks, Emily.
Dr. Michael Mack is a psychiatrist and a sleep specialist at the Centre for Addiction and Mental Health in Toronto. Just a few minutes before 7 o'clock, and Megan Ketchinson joins us now with a look at the headlines.
Well, the University of Winnipeg is extending its semester by 1 week after confirming it was the target of a cyber attack. The university shut down several of its systems after it was detected the attack on Sunday. President Todd Mondor said in a town hall the school is working to have them back up and running by next week. The term will now end on April the 12th. And groups that work with Winnipeg's homeless population are worried about the shrinking supply of low-barrier housing. 3 buildings in the city's West End are now up for sale. And we'll have more at 7:30.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Megan Ketchison. Still to come in the next hour of the show, cleaning out your parents' house can be overwhelming and emotional. So we're going to speak with an expert on what that process looks like. But first, here's Corey Funk with a look at the weather and traffic.
Yeah, -9 right now at the Forks, heading for a high of 1 degree above zero. Woot, woot, woot.
Woo.
Very exciting. Down on a bike. It's still not amazing out there right now. He gave us a call, said on the commuter line, he said, biking down rapid transit, it's fairly smooth, but it's a smorgasbord of blowing snow and ice.
That makes me hungry
patches.
every time.
I know. I love that word so much. I've been saying it all morning around the newsroom. People are like smorgasbord. Yeah. But if you do see anything else out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey.
I'm going to have a smorgasbord this weekend, I think.
Oh, are you? Really?
Usually around Easter, you got all those leftovers.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, let's just do a smorgasbord on Sunday night.
Sounds great to me. Mm-hmm. And what treats will you have on the table?
There's be leftover pasca, probably some random pasta as well, because someone always brings a pasta.
Pasta and pasca.
I have an auntie that makes a Jell-O salad usually for.
Oh, nice.
So sometimes there's some leftover Jell-O salad, which is a thing, believe it or not. And
Thanks.
yeah, whatever.
Thanks, Corey. I'm going to have the hot cross buns. World Report is next.
Duncan McHugh. He's known as the Big Maple or Shaquille O'Neal. Zach Edey is the big Canadian star of this year's March Madness college basketball tournament, and his mom Julia is watching with pride.
Really super psyched for them. It's like any other game, except of course it's a bigger stage, and I'm just really, really pleased for them that they're where they are.
Julia Edey coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. CBC News has confirmed 4 Ontario school boards are suing Snapchat, TikTok, and Meta. They allege the social media companies designed their apps for compulsive use, and they are deliberately hurting students. Duncan Embry is a partner at the law firm that has been retained by the school boards.
The best case scenario, I can give it to you in one word: change. Change to the nature of the algorithmic designs underlying these products, change to the age restrictions, change to the parental controls, but also change in terms of the resources and abilities our schools have to educate our children in a new world.
The public school boards in Toronto, Peel, and Ottawa, and the Toronto Catholic School Board have all launched separate lawsuits. Combined, they're suing for a total of $4.5 billion. Embry says this is the first lawsuit of its kind in Canada. Ireland is announcing plans to intervene in the controversial court case against Israel. The International Court of Justice is considering South Africa's claim. It alleges Israel is committing genocide in its military campaign in Gaza. Now Ireland wants to broaden the definition of genocide. Freelance journalist Lauren Comito has has more from Amsterdam.
While South Africa's genocide case against Israel is likely years away, Ireland's foreign minister, Micheál Martin, says his country will intervene, arguing that restricting food and other essentials into Gaza could constitute genocidal intent. The intention to destroy a people in part or whole based on their ethnicity, race, nationality, or religion is a prerequisite to proving genocide. It's an extraordinarily high legal threshold, and Martin says Ireland wants to expand how genocide is determined. While condemning as war crimes both the October 7th Hamas attacks and Israel's military response in Gaza, where more than 32,000 people are said to have been killed and the entire population is experiencing food insecurity, Martin says Ireland will ask judges to consider if genocide is being committed by collectively punishing an entire population. Some legal experts say if there is proof of ongoing violations of international law, that could provide the genocidal intention necessary to prove the crime. Martin says he believes there's a case to answer, although any hearing is likely years away. Lauren Kamato for CBC News, Amsterdam.
Russia is reportedly using a new weapon in its war on Ukraine. The head of Kharkiv's regional police says Russia launched a new flying bomb at the city yesterday. The bomb can be controlled in the air by soldiers. It is similar to a cruise missile, but cheaper to make. At least one person was killed in the attack and 19 more were wounded. Provinces are rolling out spring COVID vaccination campaigns, but not for everyone. The latest guidance means high-risk groups can get another shot, and as health reporter Lauren Pelly reports, older Canadians could benefit most.
Age is one of the greatest risk factors associated with severe outcomes for COVID-19.
McMaster University immunologist Matthew Miller says that's why guidelines about COVID vaccination often focus on older adults. Multiple provinces now recommend high-risk groups get another dose this spring. In some provinces, adults aged 65 and up are already among those eligible, while Ontario's spring vaccination program will start in April, and BC says it'll be announcing guidelines soon.
But I think what we will see is likely continued guidance around more frequent vaccination for those who fall into vulnerable groups.
A new modeling study from California's Stanford University also found for older adults aged 75 and up, having COVID shots twice a year instead of just once may further reduce the number of serious infections. Infectious disease specialist Dr. Nathan Lowe was on the research team.
In the older age groups, for someone who hasn't been vaccinated in over a year, I would recommend getting another vaccine dose.
That's because protection against infection can wane over time, leaving people more vulnerable to another bout of COVID. But the same researchers found for younger, healthier populations, the benefit of regular shots against severe illness was more modest, since their risk level is lower to begin with. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
The public inquiry into foreign interference will be hearing from Canadian election officials today. It is looking into foreign meddling in the 2019 and 2021 federal elections. Yesterday, the commission heard testimony from people who have been harassed by foreign actors. Jaskaran Sandhu speaks for a Sikh coalition. He was asked about the impact of foreign interference.
They literally killed a guy, right? They killed Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a president of a major Gurdwara in Surrey, in the parking lot of said Gurdwara in broad daylight. Like, how is that for impact? That's the cost of foreign interference in this country and not taking it seriously.
The inquiry will be hearing from dozens of witnesses over the next 2 weeks, including Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. U.S. President Joe Biden will be attending the most lucrative political fundraiser in American history. The event in New York could bring in $25 million to the Biden campaign. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Richard Madden in Washington. And Richard, what makes this fundraiser such a big deal?
Yeah, so beyond the record-shattering amount, President Joe Biden will be sharing the stage with two of his predecessors, Barack Obama and Bill Clinton. It'll be emceed by late-night host Stephen Colbert at New York's Radio City Music Hall. And ticket prices range by access. $225 gets you a seat. Up to $500,000 gets you access and a picture. Now, this is also the first major campaign appearance by Obama and Clinton this cycle. Now, last week, Obama spent hours at the White House recording several videos for the Biden campaign, including protecting women's rights and his signature policy, the Affordable Care Act.
As you know, Joe is an extraordinary friend and partner. He was by my side for 8 years. Together, we accomplished a lot. And there's nothing I'm more proud of than the ACA.
Now, Obama will reportedly be more active on the campaign trail, visiting college campuses and doing outreach to African American and Latino voters. Those are weak spots for Biden. And while both Obama and Clinton are rock stars within the party, it's an open question if they still have the political sway they once enjoyed.
How does this compare to the fundraising efforts of Donald Trump and his campaign?
Right. Well, election records show Biden holds a huge cash advantage, $155 million raised in February compared to Trump's $37 million, and much of those donations are being spent on his legal bills. But this election will also test the power of campaign cash. Trump proved in 2016 you don't need to raise the most money to win the presidency.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you.
The CBC's Richard Madden reporting from Washington. Investigators in Canada and the U.S. are still trying to figure out what went wrong with the Titan submersible. 9 months ago, the sub imploded during an expedition to the wreck of the Titanic. All 5 people inside died. The Fifth Estate has uncovered multiple warning signs about the sub's design flaws. And the CBC's Mark Kelly has been asking, why didn't Canada's maritime safety agencies step in to stop the expedition?
I think it was General MacArthur said, you're remembered for the rules you break. And, I've broken some rules to make this.
That's Stockton Rush, the brash CEO of the company that designed the Titan. But many in the submersible industry had warned for years, breaking rules for deep ocean diving would end up in disaster. The Fifth Estate obtained a safety report from the company's own director of marine operations. In 2018, David Lockridge outlined more than 24 flaws, including an experimental carbon fiber hull that was deteriorating with every dive. His boss, Stockton Rush, promptly fired him. Rush also assured people he had partnered with Boeing, NASA, and the University of Washington to design the hull. When contacted by the Fifth Estate, all denied they had built, designed, or tested the sub. Then there's Canadian Will Conan, who builds subs in California. He warned Rush in 2018 in an open letter his expeditions to the Titanic could end in tragedy.
Do you believe that he was regularly misrepresenting the safety of the Titan?
Oh, sure he was. The St. John's Port Authority watched the Titan in the harbor for 3 years, but said it was Transport Canada's job to inspect the sub. Transport Canada told us because it was a U.S.-flagged vessel, it was up to U.S. authorities. But the Fifth Estate determined the Titan was never flagged in the U.S. Was Transport Canada aware of all the warnings about the Titan? The agency declined our interview request, citing the ongoing investigation by the Transportation Safety Board. Mark Kelly, CBC News, St. John's.
96 Hours airs Friday night at 9 p.m. on the Fifth Estate, on CBC Television and GEM, or stream it right now on YouTube. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa. Here's what's still to come on the show. Easter's coming right up, and many kids will be eating loads of sugar. But for kids living with diabetes, celebrating that holiday is a bit different. We'll talk to a family that includes a kid with type 1 diabetes on how they navigate Easter. Well, it's something that's often misunderstood and left untreated in some women, but when is period pain normal? Coming up, we'll hear stories of 2 Manitobans diagnosed with endometriosis, and they're trying to dispel the myth and bring more attention to the disease. But first, cleaning out your parents' house can be overwhelming and emotional. We'll speak with the owner of the Seniors Moving Company to find out the process of cleaning and packing seniors when they move. Coming up on Information Radio. 11 minutes after 7 o'clock, -10 at the Forks, going up to a high of +1 today and sunny. Time now for news headlines with Megan Ketchison.
Well, after 11 years of planning, lawsuits, and delays, a proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is coming back before City Council. Developer Andrew Marquess has been planning a residential development on the land in Fort Garry since 2013. City planning officials are now backing his proposal. And people in Manitoba's Sudanese community are worried about friends and family in their home country. The civil war in Sudan has triggered what the United Nations calls one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. The country has been in civil war since April of 2023. They believe the international community is ignoring the situation in Sudan as it focuses on other conflicts around the world. And we'll have more at 7:30.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Megan Ketchison. Well, joining us now in the studio with a look at weather and traffic is Corey Funk.
Yes, we've cooled down actually a little bit here in Winnipeg to now -10, but I can tell you that it is going to warm up today above 0 to 1 degree at the Forks today, and sunny as well. So really excited for a little more spring-like vibes out there. And just looking ahead to the Easter weekend, I was telling you earlier, it's pretty much the world's easiest forecast to remember. Friday, high of 1. Saturday, high of 1. Sunday, high of 1. So you can expect for your Easter weekend a little bit of snow tomorrow, though. Friday we can expect here in the city. A little cloudy on Saturday, and then a mix of sun and cloud on Sunday. It is going to be dipping below 0 again overnight, but we don't have to worry about that because it's going to be above 0 during the
And a
days.
nice travel forecast for people getting together with family this
exactly.
weekend.
Yeah, not a bad weekend to hit the highway because it's actually a very similar forecast across the province, and I'll have a regional update for you in about half an hour or so, but a very similar forecast like that. Fairly sunny and relatively hovering around 0 right across the province today and throughout the weekend. But looking to your commute right now, the only call we've got so far, been pretty smooth over, is from Dan on a bike. He was on rapid transit, and he said it's overall pretty smooth, but it's a mix of a bunch of things. He called it a smorgasbord of icy patches or a little bit of blowing snow here and there, kind of depending where you are along the rapid transit. So look out for that. And speaking of smorgasbord, it kind of sent us on a little bit of a tangent of the role that the smorgasbord plays. I, for some reason, maybe thought that it was just a Manitoba thing, but obviously it's not. It's like it comes from a Nordic origin. But when I grew up, smorgasbord, I remember my parents would say, it would be usually on a Sunday. You've already had a big lunch, and you're like, I remember my mom or dad's like, let's just we're like kind of lazy to make a dinner, so like let's do a smorg. Do a smorg, and you just take your leftovers and then you put them out on the table, and then you just kind of everyone just go for it, and that's a Sunday smorg. I remember.
Oh, interesting. That's an informal one. I always pictured it more as like a fancier feast with a buffet and maybe the deviled eggs and the salads.
Yes,
and all that
and
stuff.
at least according to Wikipedia, that's kind of what it is more in the Nordic countries. But for whatever reason, my family and May actually, when we were talking in the control room, that was her growing up as well. Was more of like a less formal, like just kind of throw things together. I guess people would probably just call it leftovers. But
right.
but also remember more of like a Sunday smorg, like also at like my Oma's house as well. She kind of call it that. We'd put out like little kind of grabby, tasty foods, kind of little like meats and cheeses and things like that. So we were actually going to ask people, because I think there's probably going to be some smorg like behavior this weekend.
There's going to be some leftovers
yes,
for sure.
Yes, exactly. Tell us about your memories of smorgasbords and your favorite foods to eat, because I think it is a bit of a thing that we've all kind of grown up with. Maybe it's deviled eggs, maybe it's some special cheese or some kind of special dessert or something like that your family makes that you might include in a smorgasbord. Give us a call. That number 204-788-3205 is our listener line.
Quarter after 7, and you're listening to Information Radio here on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. Also heard around the world on our CBC Listen app and our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. I'm Emily Brass, in today for Marcy Marcusa. Well, moving isn't always an easy process for our older population. It can be overwhelming for families who are helping their loved ones transition from their home to another. Where do you start, and how do you decide what to keep and what to give away? Lisa Sinix is the owner of the Seniors Moving Company, and she joins us now. Good morning, Lisa.
Good morning.
So your company does consultations, families dealing with this process. What does that consultation look like?
Yes, the consultation is a great first start to kind of get to know what our folks are up to, where they're moving, when they're moving, kind of those finite details, but also allows us the opportunity to see kind of what's involved. Do folks need downsizing? Do they need to kind of declutter and prep? Or are they in good shape and maybe they just need help with decision making, the packing, the actual move, unpacking? So the consultation is kind of the key first step to finding out what people need and listening to them about how they'd like to see things done and ideas that they have for their new home. And then we just help facilitate that.
And of course, when you get some age on you, you start to collect a lot of things. Maybe your home gets a bit cluttered. Where do you start when it's a cluttered home?
Yes, cluttered homes are a little bit challenging. And again, there are varied reasons for cluttered homes. So that's kind of one of the first discussions to have, is did it just kind of get away from you because of health issues, or do you have difficulty letting go of things? So we start in that consultation, but also we kind of start with the things that are most easily let go and work towards things that might be a little bit more difficult. So for example, maybe starting in an office or with a filing cabinet, shredding things that are unnecessary, fairly easy. Moving backwards to things like china cabinets, photos, things that may not be. So definitely having a strategy to declutter and a little bit of goal setting as well. So discussing, we're going to work for an hour today and an hour tomorrow, or we're going to do one closet today, one closet tomorrow. Just kind of having a plan, we find also helps keep people on track when it comes to kind of decluttering, thinning out, downsizing, which is the buzzword, and preparing for a move.
And of course, like you mentioned, the china cabinet, the photos, like people can be quite attached to those, even if they haven't looked at them and used them in years. How do you work with the families as you're cleaning out homes and, dealing with those emotions they might be going through?
Yes. Well, families are, very varied and diverse. As we all know, the dynamics in every family are different. But we certainly look at clients as the whole picture. And if our clients want their families, kids, grandkids involved, then we certainly do that. In terms of how do we kind of manage that, we oftentimes take the lead from our clients, from the families, in terms of what their visions, wants, needs for this whole process are, and then kind of act as the third-party objective, professional. We've been at this for 20 years, so we kind of have a few good strategies up our sleeve based on different scenarios. So we just kind of try our best to work with the families, understanding that our clients are the actual older adults that are moving. In estate cases, it would be, the executor or family member that's taking the lead. But certainly respecting the whole family, because it's a tough thing, right? It's your family home, dispersing the contents, or moving your folks or mom, dad from family home. So there are a lot of emotions, but we just try our best to work with everyone and provide that third-party objective professionalism.
But that must be a bit hard, when you see people are maybe crying and upset. Like, how do you stay objective and manage your emotions when you're working with families? You say you're hugging?
Yeah, we hug. Yes, folks that are crying, we have no problem, consoling and taking time that needs to be taken to make sure that we're not rushing through the process. We're very client-centered as opposed to business-centered, so that is an important part of what we do at Seniors Moving. My staff kind of get attached to some people, and, we think about them, months later and years later. It's nice when we're in our retirement residences, when we move someone and we see them in the hallways, months later, and see that they're doing well and enjoying their new lifestyle. So, our staff do our best. And there's some tough ones. There's some tough situations, but we kind of try and maintain our focus on our task at hand. And, hoping that we do all of the right things to make our clients feel like this was a successful move, not that they've lost things, in terms of dispersing and downsizing, but they've gained things in terms of lifestyle and an easier way to live.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that former clients, seeing them in the hallway and, that they seem to be doing well. And anyone who's ever decluttered, that you do get this sense of relief and it does feel lighter. So how can people listening apply some of your methods when they're cleaning out their own homes?
Yes. Well, one of the tips I kind of alluded to earlier is start with the easy things and work your way backwards. That's always helpful to get the ball rolling and to kind of get momentum. It's like when you start working out again, you have to start small and build up. Same with downsizing, decluttering. Having materials on hand, having boxes available so that you can kind of get right at it and you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to declutter today and then you're going to go, dumpster diving for boxes or whatever. Get yourself organized and have a plan. Mm-hmm. Have a schedule or have a plan and try and hit that goal. And even if it is just an hour every other day or even a half of a closet, half of my linen closet, I'm going to do these 3 shelves today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good way to break it down. And I know I always like to have the garbage pile, the recycling pile, and the giveaway pile. And keep organized. Thanks so much for all these tips, Lisa.
Great. I'm happy to pass them on.
Lisa Sinix is the owner of the Seniors Moving Company. 23 minutes after 7 o'clock, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass. Well, earlier this week on Information Radio, we heard from 2 voices in our community about what's happening in Gaza and the recent UN Security Council call for a ceasefire. We heard yesterday from Ramsey Zeid. He's the president of the Canadian Palestinian Association of Manitoba. And on Tuesday, we heard from Belle Jarnewski, executive director of the Jewish Heritage Center of Western Canada. And we got several calls and emails following these interviews. Yesterday, we played some of them on the show. Here's another message we received, and we have edited it for length.
Oh, hi, Marcy. My name is Evan calling. And I just have to say that I'm really disappointed that you chose to center a Jewish Zionist voice first before contacting anyone from the Palestinian community. I think the fact that there are, at least 30,000 plus Palestinians dead here would, to any, person of conscience should lead to talking to that community first rather than the community that is perpetrating that violence on said community. And as a white settler in Canada, I think it's been extremely disappointing to see all of my fellow Canadians not be able to recognize settler colonialism for what it is after, the TRC and all of our good intentions. We are providing political cover and acceptance for an illegitimate act of genocide against an Indigenous population. This is what Canada is a result of. And if we want to be true to the TRC and actually work towards true reconciliation, we have to cut all ties with the apartheid state of Israel. This is a no-brainer to me. If we want to truly, approach anything resembling justice in the world, we can't let this kind of atrocity stand. Otherwise, we're hypocrites. And I think we have proven ourselves to be hypocrites with double standards based in racism, based in Western imperialism, based in chauvinism, based in white supremacy. And that is what the Israeli occupation is. And it's high time that we start calling it out for what it is.
That was a call we got in response to 2 interviews we did following the UN Security Council call for a ceasefire in Gaza. And to hear those interviews, go to the CBC Listen app. "26 minutes after 7 o'clock, time for sports news. Scott Reguer joins us from the CBC Sports Desk. Good morning.
Hey there, Emily.
So today is one of the surest signs it's spring?
Okay, Blue Jays, let's play ball.
Such an optimistic song, Emily.
Yeah.
And yet, as the Blue Jays begin their season in Tampa this afternoon, that old Bat Boys ditty rings a little hollow this time around, at least for me. Maybe it's because it still feels like we're in the midst of a Shohei Ohtani hangover after the club's failed attempt to bring in the sport's best ever player as a free agent. Maybe it's because the Jays' backup plan, Juan Soto, signed with the rival New York Yankees. Or maybe it's because of the guys Toronto did sign. None of them are of the caliber of another player that they lost in free agency. That's Matt Chapman, the third baseman. So it is lovely. Spring in the sports world has sprung. But just like Toronto's weather this month, I'm wary of snowfall while watching those flowers try to poke their heads out of the ground.
And, some might consider that a pessimistic take, Scott, for a team that's made the playoffs more often than not of late. Let's talk about the Jays' strengths.
All right. Pitching for sure, Emily. Kevin Gausman, Chris Bassett, Yusei Kikuchi, and today's starter, Jose Barrios, definitely give Toronto a formidable foursome. And if top prospect Ricky Tiedemann contributes in a meaningful way this season, they'll have a chance, because when you have good pitching, you always have a chance. But general manager Ross Atkins says he sees much more than just a strong rotation.
The continued growth of the group here, our belief in the group here, things that we've added to this team. Really excited about the additions of Justin Turner and bringing KK back. Really excited about the progress of Alek Manoah. A lot has transpired to keep this group together, continue to complement it, that we feel very, very strong about.
Okay. To summarize, Atkins is trumpeting a 39-year-old Justin Turner, a glove-first center fielder in Kevin Kiermaier, and a pitcher who's dealing with the yips in Alek Manoah as reasons to believe this season. But the reality is, Emily, Toronto was a weaker club than the one that got swept by Minnesota in the wildcard series last season. The Jays, because of their latest renovations to Skydome, they begin their campaign with a 10-game road trip, and it's a tough one. They play the Rays, Astros, and Yankees. If they come back with a winning record, and I highly doubt that if I'm being honest, then at least that'll give the club's marketing department something to fill those now very cozy seats after the renovations at Skydome. So today's first pitch from Florida, just after 2 o'clock Central Time. And if you heard all that and go, nah, I'm more interested in the Gold Eyes, their season opener, May 5th against Claiborne. And just before I head off, hockey fans, the Jets back in action tonight, trying to snap a 4-game losing streak. They host the Vegas Golden Knights.
Thank you so much, Scott.
You betcha.
That's Scott Reguer from the CBC Sports Desk. Well, still to come on Information Radio.
That diagnosis was like the epitome of my life, because I was like, finally, I have a reason. I wasn't crazy. The pain is real.
We'll hear the stories of 2 Manitoba women who are living with endometriosis. It's a painful disease that takes on an average of 7 to 9 years to diagnose. That's coming up after the CBC News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg. It's 7:30, clear skies and -10, sunny and 1 today, but there is snow on the way for tomorrow. The University of Winnipeg is extending its semester by 1 week after confirming it was the target of a cyber attack. The university shut down several of its systems after it detected the attack on Sunday. President Todd Mondor said in a town hall that the school is working to have them back up by early next week.
This was a targeted criminal attack, obviously unfortunate here. It doesn't necessarily mean that the proper protections were not in place. It's just that threat actors are out there. They're attacking systems everywhere, and they managed to get through our defenses this time.
The term will now end on April 12th to give instructors extra time to finish their class plans. Exams will begin a week late on the 18th. Mondor says convocation should still happen on time. Groups that work with Winnipeg's homeless population are worried about a shrinking supply of low-barrier housing. 3 buildings in the city's West End are up for sale. The properties were used by outreach groups to house people from encampments. All 3 properties belong to Patrick Penner or his wife, Karen Harper Penner. Michelle Wesley is the outreach coordinator with St. Boniface Street Links. She worked with the Penners to put people in homes.
The low barrier housing that is provided through the Penners is extremely important, and them closing down is actually putting the housing in a really tough position for the clients that are in there.
CBC News tried contacting the Penners but did not receive a response. The city councillor for the area says she's worried the loss of these buildings could make homelessness in the area worse. Well, they haven't been made since the 1970s, but bombardiers are still used every winter on the frozen shores of Manitoba's Interlake. CBC's Emily Brass visited the little fishing community of St. Laurent as part of our series called Communities in Focus.
They look part snowmobile, part magic bus. Bombardiers are part of St. Laurent's identity, says RM councillor Mo Leclerc.
Some people call us the capital of bombardiers. There's somewhere around 40 or 50 of them, I'm told.
St. Laurent even has road signs marking bombardier crossings. Locals say they're the ultimate ice fishing machine since they go where other vehicles won't. Mike Chartrand is a commercial ice fisher in St. Laurent.
I've been around this since I was a kid.
The first bombardier was made by Bombardier in Quebec in 1937. First used as school buses and ambulances, sales plummeted in the 40s when towns started snow clearing roads. The last one was made in the 70s.
Look at the belting, make sure it's not all worn out.
The bombardiers that are still around need a lot of maintenance, like Chartrand's 1957.
If you're a handy person and you can do a lot of work yourself, good. But if you got to pay somebody to put it all together, the parts are expensive.
Chartrand says it's all worth it to keep the tradition going. Emily Brass, CBC News, St. Laurent, Manitoba.
To learn more about the bombardiers and see pictures, go to our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. In international news, Russia is reportedly using a new weapon in its war against Ukraine.
Влучання попередньо новою.
That's the head of Kharkiv's regional police describing a flying bomb that was used on the city earlier this week. It appears to be a cross between a cruise missile and a drone, and crucially, it's cheap to produce. In this week's strike, 1 person was killed and at least 19 were injured. A proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is back before City Council next week. Developer Andrew Marquess has been planning a residential development on the land in Fort Garry since 2013. His plans have been plagued by delays and conflict with the City of Winnipeg. The developer successfully sued the city twice. Marquess says he's already sold some units in what he's calling Fulton Grove.
The interest from the development community has been very, very strong. So clearly the development community want to build on this site. So I'm really hopeful that, council sees it to, allow development to move forward.
The plan for Fulton Grove calls for 1,900 units in apartments, townhouses, and detached homes. The proposal comes before the City Centre Community Committee on April the 4th. Manitobans from Sudan say they're devastated to see their home country in crisis. Sudan has been in a civil war for almost a year. The United Nations says the humanitarian crisis there has become one of the worst in recent history. It's pushing millions of people to the brink of famine. Mandela Kwet came to Winnipeg with his parents in 1998 when he was 13 years old. The community activist says he feels disheartened and helpless as he watches the crisis unfold from afar.
Right now the situation is dire for a lot of the people down there. Security is a big issue. There's a lot of challenges there. There's a lot of people losing their lives, not just my family, but a lot of other people's family.
The civil war in Sudan began in April of 2023 when clashes broke out between the army and paramilitary rapid support forces. And that's the news from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Megan. You played that report on bombardiers and Mike Chartrand, the ice fisher. Yes. He actually took us out in the bombardier. We went out on the lake and it was such an adventure. We're going to talk about it more after World Report.
How much fun was that?
Oh, it was the best. It's a surprisingly smooth ride, even though you're bumping over all this stuff. You feel invincible, like you can go over anything. And it's like a tank.
Great.
Thank you so much, Megan.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Megan Ketchison. I'm Emily Brass, in today for Marcy Marcusa, and in the studio with me right now for a look at weather and traffic is Corey Funk.
Yes, we're in for a fairly lovely Easter weekend compared to the last few days we've had here in Manitoba. -10 right now at the Forks, heading for a high of 1 degree and sunny today. It's above zero, which I could say it's going to be above zero for the rest of the province, but it's not that cold. Thompson, for example, -16 right now, heading for a high of -1 and sunny. Brandon, -16, heading for a high of -2 today and sunny. Dauphin, -14 right now, heading for a high of -1 and sunny as well. So overall, going to be quite lovely today, and fairly lovely, kind of similar temperatures, hovering around zero for much of the province for the rest of the Easter weekend as well. As for the commute, pretty quiet out there. Haven't heard anything besides pretty lovely conditions, more or less, on the rapid transit bike route from Dan on a Bike. Odd icy patch, so do look out for that. But if you do see anything else going on out there, give me a call on that CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Corey Funk, and hopefully those ice patches will be gone soon. I'm so sick of walking around them. It is 7:37. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass. Well, kids will be running around this weekend trying to find brightly colored Easter eggs, and a lot of them will be eating loads of sugar. But for kids living with diabetes, Easter can present some unique challenges. One Winnipeg family celebrates the holiday a bit more strategically and advocates for kids living with diabetes. Heidi Boyachek is the mother of 10-year-old Haley Boyachek, who lives with type 1 diabetes, and they're joining us now over Zoom. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being with us. Heidi, what was it like for you when Haley was first diagnosed with type 1 diabetes?
Haley's diagnosis was very hard for us. She is now 10, but at 3 years old was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And we had, at that point, had zero knowledge of it. Nobody in our families had type 1. So it was a major life change and learning curve to all of a sudden have to be pinning your toddler down to poke their fingers, giving needles before every snack and every meal. Our life was filled with constant worry, and we had to find a better way.
I mean, and what's it been like as a mom to help Haley navigate her life with diabetes since then?
Navigating life with diabetes, it's a lot of work. There are no breaks. There's no finish line. It's a 24/7, mostly invisible disease. Any scenario can change your blood sugar. It's not just what you eat. It can be excitement. It can be nerves, birthday parties, holidays like Easter coming up. All those things affect blood sugar. And we quickly learned that having to prick Haley's finger all day, every day, even in the night when she was sleeping, wasn't going to be a realistic way for us to live. And so we searched out better options, and we found some really incredible, innovative technology called a continuous glucose monitor. And it has changed our life.
Yeah. Haley, how do you feel about that continuous glucose monitor? What's it like wearing that?
Well, what I always say, like, my mom doesn't have to chase me and do my finger pokes. She could just look on her phone to see my glucose waters, and then I can just go run around and play.
Yeah, that's a lot easier, isn't it? So
It's much better.
Yeah, Haley, I heard you have some accessories that go with your monitor that you really like. Tell us about that.
Well, I have these fun stickers I can put on my Dexcom, and yeah, and then I can put some over it, and like cool donut ones, butterfly ones.
We like to jazz it up.
And I mean, do kids notice those stickers at school? Do they ask you what you're wearing? Like, how does that go for you, Haley?
Well, not anymore, because they're used to seeing me with my Dexcom on and the stickers. So at school, I wear my t-shirt and then they can see my Dex.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the kids are generally supporting you, do you think?
Absolutely.
Heidi, how do you handle holidays like Easter? You know, there's so much emphasis on those chocolate bunnies and the jelly beans, all these sugary treats. Like, what's it like at your house?
Absolutely. That was for sure an instant worry after Haley's diagnosis was, what would life look like and would it feel, quote unquote, normal for her? And we do have another daughter as well who doesn't have T1D. And for our girls, no holidays are different for either girl. So for Easter, the Easter Bunny still comes to our home. leaves the Easter eggs filled with treats, and we make everything as positive as we can. So after Haley's emptied all her eggs out and gotten her pile of loot, we call that stocking up on low treats. So whenever you have a low blood sugar, you need to eat sugar or candy to bring it up quickly. And that's a perfect time to dip into that fun little Easter basket. And then also, thanks to this CGM technology we're using, Haley's able to go run around and do her egg hunt while I can just see what her glucose values are from my phone. I'm not following her around saying, wait, we need to check your blood sugar first. And if she wants to eat a couple of those treats, just like anybody else, everything is fine in moderation as long as we balance it with insulin.
Sounds like it's going to be fun. Haley, what are you looking forward to for Easter?
I'm looking forward to hunting all the treats with my sister.
Oh, really? Do the Easter Bunny hide it pretty well generally? Is it a hard hunt?
Not really hard. Sometimes he puts it outside and inside, and in my basement, so it's like all over the house.
When you live on a big farmyard, there's a lot of options.
Is there anything that's maybe a bit tougher about Easter, Haley?
I don't know.
You sometimes not get to eat the stuff you want when you want to.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can be tempting, right? When that Easter bunny is sitting there, but you gotta wait. Heidi, how does it feel as a mom to watch Haley, be so responsible like this with her diabetes?
I am honestly just beaming with pride. This girl has taken on such a big battle that she didn't ask for, and she deals with it with a smile on her face every day, always a positive attitude, never poor me or complaining. And now as she's growing up, she's becoming an advocate. She's using her voice and bringing awareness. We really want to help others who are maybe struggling the way we did at the beginning learn about this amazing technology. So what a CGM is basically you're wearing a sensor on your body that is sending your glucose values to a smart device every 5 minutes. So instead of having to prick your finger and wondering what your blood sugars are, you can now look down at your phone or receiver and know. And then you can also have people following your numbers. So parents, caregivers, school staff, it's such a peace of mind for parents to be able to know that she's safe and we can always see how she's doing.
And just before you go, what difference does it make to actually have those conversations? Often diabetes is something people don't really talk about. How has it changed things for you to be open about it?
Absolutely. Using our voice has kind of been like our way of fighting back against the disease that's caused us a lot of pain, heartache, and frustration. And it's really important to bring awareness. We quickly learned that type 1 diabetes is not the same as type 2. It is not what we thought it was. And the more we talk about it, the more awareness we bring. Hopefully it helps us become one step close, be one step closer to finding a cure. And like I mentioned before, just really to help share our story and maybe help others learn about the devices that are available really close to your fingertips. You just need to talk to a doctor or pharmacist and they can help you find a CGM that will manage your disease better as well.
Well, Heidi and Haley, thanks so much for joining us this morning. Hope you have a happy Easter.
Thank you. You too. Happy Easter.
Heidi Boyachek is the mom of 10-year-old Haley, and you can follow Heidi on Instagram at Heidi Boyachek. Coming up on 7:45, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, I'm Emily Brass. Well, March is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and if you don't know what that means, there's a 1 in 10 chance you know someone with a uterus who does know what that means. The chronic inflammatory disease is common, but massively underdiagnosed and misunderstood. That often leads people sick and in pain to advocate for themselves. CBC associate producer Chloe Friesen collected the stories of 2 Manitobans who are dealing with endo, and she spoke earlier with CBC's Marcy Marcusa.
Good morning, Marcy.
So first of all, just to set the stage for this, what is endometriosis?
So I'm not a doctor, but in its simplest terms, endometriosis or endo is an inflammatory condition where tissue that's similar to the lining of the uterus, it's growing on other parts of the body. It's often labeled similarly to cancer from stage 1 to 4 based on how much tissue is found. Now, this tissue can cause debilitating pain and life-altering symptoms like chronic fatigue, heavy bleeding, painful intercourse, bloating, nausea, and even infertility in some some cases. And there's no cure. It's a chronic disease. It affects about 1 in 10 people assigned female at birth, and that's a lot of people. But it's expected that number is actually higher due to the amount of people who are undiagnosed or in the process of seeking a diagnosis. And the thing is, because period and pelvic pain is so normalized, it's pretty under-researched. It can take years for people to get diagnosed.
As I mentioned, you talked to 2 Manitobans about their journey to get diagnosed, but also with endo. Who are we meeting first?
So I first spoke with Bonnie Albert. She's a 44-year-old mother of 5 who lives in Norway House, Cree Nation. She teaches home economics and actually just became a grandma for the first time. Bonnie's endometriosis journey started in 2019 when she was 39. She had been mostly healthy, but she told me her periods started getting heavy and scary. So she went to the health center in Norway House.
They basically said that there's, Tylenol, Advil, there's not really anything that they can do. But they did end up referring me to the gynecologist who comes in eventually. I think it was after my 3rd visit going in.
Bonnie did eventually get a referral to see a gynecologist, but she said she had to go in multiple times before she was taken seriously. She says that advocating for herself became exhausting, especially because she never had a consistent doctor because of just a lack of doctors in her area.
It was very emotional because I'm not a doctor. I can't fix my body, and I really needed help. And having to explain my pain and my journey with every new doctor that I had to go see, it was very hard.
Bonnie also mentioned that specialists like gynecologists only visit Norway House about once a month, sometimes less than that due to weather.
So when did Bonnie get officially diagnosed then with endometriosis?
It was actually at another trip to the clinic when her pain was becoming unmanageable, she says. She met a new doctor there who shared some important information with her.
So she was the one that actually told me. She said, well, yeah, that's probably, most likely your endometriosis. So I was like, my what? When she said that term, right away I'm researching myself. I'm Googling, I'm looking into it, and it was starting to be clear. I was like, okay. I was like, this is what I have.
So Bonnie finally had a name for what she was experiencing, endometriosis.
So was there anything she could do once she understood, her diagnosis?
Bonnie told me that she tried a lot of different treatments for her endo, including medication that she said caused severe depression, so she stopped taking it. Eventually, she got what's called ablation surgery, and that's a procedure where the lining of the uterus is destroyed to help reduce bleeding. And while that did help for a few months, Bonnie says the pain slowly returned.
I remember it was 4 months straight, 24/7. I was in pain, like extreme pain. I lived off of Tylenol and Advil. I would even have to put a timer on my phone so I wouldn't miss my next dose. I was pretty much bedridden. I'd go to work, yes, and I'd come home and I would pretty much just curl up into bed. I felt bad, and I would apologize to my kids. And it was really hard not being there.
Now, throughout all of this, Bonnie had to wait months before she could see a gynecologist again. When she did, she was scheduled for a hysterectomy, which is the surgical removal of the uterus. She's actually recovering from the procedure right now, but not everything went according to plan.
I wake up and I see him sitting in a chair in my hospital room, and I kind of, said, oh, hello. And he kind of had his hand on his head and said it didn't go well. I said, what do you mean? And he said, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. Everything is stuck. He says, my uterus is stuck like cement to my bowel. He could not take anything out.
So she's talking to her surgeon there, it sounds like. Poor her.
Mm-hmm. So Bonnie, she's now in the midst of a 6-week recovery, and nothing has really changed for her. She doesn't fault her doctor, she told me, for this, but she did tell me she wishes she had more information before she went into surgery. So Bonnie has now been referred to another doctor, and she told me she feels angry and helpless at this point, but said that sharing her story with others does give her some hope.
So let's thank Bonnie Albert for sharing that on CBC and with us. You mentioned you spoke to another Manitoban living with endo, right?
Yeah, I spoke with Morgan Stevenson. She's a 29-year-old woman from Winnipeg. She has an ostomy bag and she's in menopause. Both are treatments for her stage 4 endometriosis. So her journey started when she was 15. She saw doctor after doctor trying to find answers for her pelvic and her bladder pain. Similar to Bonnie, she didn't receive a lot of support. Here's Morgan recounting a visit to her doctor when she was 19.
And I remember going to see my GP, and I was like, I think I should see a gynecologist. And he literally sat in front of me and said, well, do you bleed heavy? I'm like, no, but I have XXXXXXX. And I kind of laid out a bunch of symptoms that I had. And he's like, well, you don't bleed heavy. And he denied me access to a referral at that time.
Morgan said that advocating for herself was a huge hurdle. She says she often didn't feel believed. Take a listen to her experience with a gastrointestinal specialist she saw.
He actually tried to convince my parents that I was needed psychiatric help because it's oh, well, you're young. And I had a previous diagnosis of anxiety when I was a child, and he kind of went off with that. And it got so bad that I actually it was quite embarrassing because I was university educated. I actually wanted to go into medicine at the time. And I had to bring my father to my appointments as a adult woman.
Wow.
Yeah, so Morgan told me she no longer sees that doctor, but her pain got worse. She became unable to leave her home due to intestinal issues. She actually told me she got married at home because she was so sick. So she took matters into her own hands, even traveling to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota to look into treatment options.
And after 4 years of countless doctors, ER visits, blah, 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 I kind of decided to take hold of my own sort of health, and I actually opted for a ostomy bag. It's where they redirect your intestines, and then you have a bag to catch your output. Because I said I can't just be stuck at home all the time.
So still, Morgan had never heard of endometriosis then. In 2020, her health seriously declined, and she was experiencing excruciating pelvic pain. So Morgan says that getting a new GP really turned things around for her, and she finally felt listened to and supported. So eventually she's referred to a pelvic pain specialist.
And he said, you're telling me you've had pelvic pain for over a decade and you've never had any sort of pelvic ultrasound or testing or x-ray. I'm like, no.
So those tests are finally done, and after a decade of pain, as you heard Morgan say, they found endometriosis and adenomyosis, which is the enlargement of the uterus due to growths. So Morgan finally had an answer to her pain.
Finally, I have a reason I wasn't crazy. The pain is real. This idea of the diagnosis being oh my God, that's so bad. It's well, no, because I've already been sick. It actually validates the fact that no, I was sick and I am sick. And this is the reason why.
So then what followed that? Medically, could she get any help?
So Morgan was able to have surgery to remove as much of the endo as possible. She ended up losing one of her ovaries, which was completely enveloped in cysts and fused to her abdominal wall. And the thing about endometriosis is that when you remove it, it can grow back. And that's what Morgan experienced. So she opted for a total hysterectomy and to put herself into surgical menopause to prevent things from getting worse and lower her risk of cancer.
How is she doing now?
She's doing well. She's still not at 100% and says she never will be. She also told me it's really strange to be in menopause at the age of 29, but she says she finds purpose in helping others with ostomy bags and endometriosis. However, it's hard for her not to question what her life would be like if doctors had listened to her sooner.
So both Bonnie and Morgan took a long time to get diagnosed. How common is that?
Unfortunately, it's kind of the norm when it comes to endo. According to the Endometriosis Network of Canada, it takes 5 years on average to get diagnosed, sometimes even longer. This is something I was really curious about, so I asked a doctor who specializes in endo for his perspective. Dr. Devin Evans is a gynecologist who works out of the St. Boniface Hospital Pelvic Pain and Endometriosis Clinic. He said since there's no quick fix for endo, you need consistent care from a variety of doctors working together, which is really hard to come by in Manitoba.
A lot of people really struggle to access the care that they need, and there's huge diagnostic delays in accessing adequate treatment for people. And unfortunately, it's not as simple as, taking a pill or doing a surgery to help people. It requires really comprehensive longitudinal care. That's part of the reason why so few people access the care that they need, is because our healthcare system just isn't set up for that.
So it sounds like that is a helpful place.
It can be if you can get an appointment. Here's Dr. Evans again.
the St. Boniface Hospital pelvic pain and endometriosis clinic, where I'm sitting right now, is literally just me and our administrative staff and some nurses that are cross-appointed to this clinic as well as others. But we have no other support from psychology or physiotherapy or even additional physician staff.
As you can imagine, Dr. Devin Evans is really busy. 1 in 10 people assigned female at birth have this disease, and there's one doctor at the endo clinic. It doesn't quite add up.
What does Dr. Evans say then is needed for better care of endo patients here in Manitoba?
He mentioned more support and staff at the St. Boniface Clinic, but also more widespread awareness across health systems. Endometriosis can affect your entire body as an inflammatory disease, so the more doctors know about it at all levels, the quicker it can be diagnosed and hopefully managed. He says awareness is important for everyone. He says the main message is to listen to your body. If you have painful periods and if it's impacting your daily life, see a doctor.
Chloe, thanks so much for bringing us this report this morning.
It was my pleasure, Marcy, and thank you to everyone who shared their stories and experiences with me.
That was CBC's Chloe Friesen speaking with Marcy Marcusa. March is Endometriosis Awareness Month. Well, time now for a look at the news headlines with Megan Ketchison.
After 11 years of planning, lawsuits, and delays, a proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is coming back before City Council. The developer has been planning a residential development on this land in Fort Garry since 2013. City planning officials are now backing his proposal, but he's unhappy with some of the recommended changes in the plan. And an Ottawa area woman is the first in Canada to get an experimental therapy developed in Winnipeg for a chronic infection. Phage therapy is experimental and currently not available outside of clinical trials, but researchers hope this case will change that. And we'll have more coming up at 8:30.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
That's CBC's Megan Ketchison. Well, it's -10 right now at the Forks, mainly clear. Sunny today in Winnipeg, going up to a high of +1. Clear tonight with a low of -11. Then tomorrow, increasing cloudiness with snow starting in the afternoon. Pretty windy with gusts up to 40 kilometers an hour around noon and a high of +1. For Brandon, mainly sunny today, high -2. A few clouds tonight and breezy with a low of -9. Increasing cloudiness tonight, tomorrow rather, with snow starting around noon. 5 to 10 centimeters expected in Brandon and windy with a high of -2. Dauphin, mainly sunny today, high -1. Clear tonight with increasing cloudiness overnight, low -11. Mainly cloudy tomorrow with snow starting around noon. 5 centimeters expected in the Dauphin area with a high of -1. Thompson, sunny today, high -1. Clear tonight, low -19. Sunny for tomorrow with increasing cloudiness late in the afternoon and a high of -2. Well, after the 8 o'clock news, I recently got a chance to go for a ride in one of those iconic Bombardier ice fishing vehicles that you might have heard about in the 7:30 news. So I'm going to tell you what that was like and take you through the economic and cultural impact this machine has had in our province, especially in the community of Saint Laurent along the Interlake. That's coming up in the next hour of Information Radio. Stay tuned. You're listening to CBC Radio 189.3 FM in Winnipeg. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa. World Report is up next.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. The Last Dinner Party have had a huge year with a #1 album and winning the BBC Sound of 2024 contest. They'll tell you about bringing a sense of occasion and joy to their live shows.
Q. This morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Duncan McHugh. He's known as the Big Maple or Zaquille O'Neal. Zach Eady is the big Canadian star of this year's March Madness college basketball tournament, and his mom Julia is watching with pride. Julia Eady coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young.
Ontario's 4 largest school boards are launching lawsuits against the companies behind Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. They are seeking billions of dollars in damages, and they say the apps have a big impact on schools, kids, and learning. Tricia Kindleman reports.
The lawsuit alleges these social media products are designed for compulsive use and have rewired the way children think, behave, and learn. The suit includes the Ottawa Carleton District School Board, along with Toronto District, Toronto Catholic, and Peel District School Boards. The boards say they are being left to manage the fallout of social media when they're already just getting by with limited resources. Duncan Embry with Neinstein LLP has been retained by the school boards. He wants to make change since he says these companies are aware of the problems their young users are facing.
The best case scenario, I can give it to you in one word: change. Change to the nature of the algorithmic designs underlying these products, change to the age restrictions, change to the parental controls, but also change in terms of the resources.
The boards are looking for $4.5 billion to help them respond to the evolving needs of students. Tricia Kindleman, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian economy continues to grow. Statistics Canada reports gross domestic product is up 0.6% in January. That is better than what economists were forecasting. CBC senior business correspondent Peter Armstrong has more.
I think you can safely call this a rebound. The headline number is better than expected. The flash estimate for February, better than expected. Manufacturing led the charge here, which is good because we saw a pretty sharp decline in manufacturing back in December. So all this feeds into that narrative that the economy is poised to pose something of a rebound through 2024. And these data might tell us that it's coming faster even than we might have expected. But there's always a but, isn't there? It's evident that some of this isn't just the kind of economic grind of people buying more stuff. A big chunk of the rebound in manufacturing, for example, comes as production resumed at auto assembly plants after they had shut down for some retooling in December. Another big contributor, education, is back on track after some labor action in Quebec. So it's a good report, but like everything else these days, it includes some important caveats and points to a still choppy road back to that recovery. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
The public inquiry into foreign interference is hearing from witnesses who have been harassed by foreign actors. Yesterday, people representing Chinese, Sikh, Iranian, Russian, and Uyghur communities were testifying. Janice McGregor joins me now from our Parliamentary Bureau. And Janice, what concerns are they raising?
Marcia, anyone who went into this inquiry skeptical about whether foreign interference is that big a deal had their eyes opened by this leadoff panel yesterday afternoon that painfully, anxiously, with evident frustration, recounted how hostile actors from China, India, Iran, and Russia harass their communities for political gain. People like Mehmet Toti, from the Uyghur Rights Advocacy Project. Under former leader Erin O'Toole, Conservatives championed the recognition of a genocide against Uyghurs in China, adopted policies that advocates like Toti asked for, like action against Beijing's use of forced labor. But as this inquiry is going to probe, Conservatives believe they were targeted for that in the 2021 election. They believe they lost votes as a result. Toti told the inquiry that since then, he sees the official opposition pulling back from its previous commitment to his cause.
And the new leader of the Conservative Party has yet to mention Uyghur genocide in the parliament, in compare to Erin O'Toole. And so you can see that difference.
A troubling suggestion that not only is foreign interference present in Canada, it's working and shaping our politics.
Today, the inquiry is hearing from Canada's election officials. What more can you tell us about that?
No one's suggesting that the last 2 federal elections were stolen per se, but it's a question about whether hostile actors are putting fingers on the scale. Some Conservatives have argued that in 8 or 9 ridings with large Chinese diaspora populations, they did as punishment for their hawkish foreign policy positions. This inquiry has to figure out whether that's true, and if so, how? Because if malicious actors are able to tilt close races in the future, that's a serious problem for our democracy.
Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Ireland says it is intervening in South Africa's controversial court case against Israel. The International Court of Justice is examining whether genocide is being committed in Gaza. Ireland's third-party intervention seeks to widen the definition of genocide to include the restriction of aid. Foreign Minister Micheál Martin says Israel's actions are collective punishment on the Palestinians for the crimes of Hamas. Ukrainian officials say Russia launched a new type of guided bomb at the city of Kharkiv. It can be controlled in the air. It is powerful and it's relatively cheap. At least one person was killed in the Russian attack on Wednesday. 19 others were wounded, including 4 children. Anna Cunningham has more from London.
At the scene of the latest Russian shelling in Kharkiv, Vladislav had bandaged, searches through what's left of his flat. Outside the 5-story apartment, a crowd looks on at their now destroyed homes. Vladislav's girlfriend Katerina says it was only by chance that she survived. This latest airstrike has concerned the local authorities because they believe a new type of bomb was used. Vladimir Timoshko is head of the Kharkiv Regional Police. This is something between a guided aerial bomb, which the Russians have used recently, he says. It's a flying bomb. Kharkiv's regional governor is Oleg Sinokhov. He agrees this was a universal intertype flying bomb. The Russians decided to test their modified bombs on the residents of the houses, he says. The bomb is significant because it can be controlled by soldiers like a cruise missile, but is cheaper to produce. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned the attack as Russian terror. Russia denies targeting civilians. Anna Cunningham for CBC News, London.
Investigators are searching above and below the water at the site of the bridge collapse in Baltimore. They want to find out why the cargo ship collided with the bridge, and they're still looking for 4 men believed to be dead. For more, we go to the CBC's Chris Reyes in Dundalk, Maryland. And Chris, where is the investigation headed today?
Well, we know that investigators and engineers will be back on the Dali today, the massive cargo ship that hit that bridge. And Marcia, they're doing 2 things. 1, interviewing the crew members who are still on board, as well as the pilots that were in charge of guiding that vessel out of the harbor. And 2, gathering more material and evidence. They've requested the ship's maintenance and inspection records. They're still looking for any other camera footage from inside the ship that may have captured the moments leading up to the crash. They've also inspected the cargo on board. They've identified that 56 containers have hazardous materials in them. We found out yesterday that they have the black box, and they've been able to piece a basic timeline of the event. Investigators are expected to be on site for the next week or so. Our preliminary report will be released in 2 to 4 weeks.
As the work gets done, the search continues for the victims in the bridge collapse. What do we know about that?
2 victims from that construction crew on the bridge were pulled out of the water last night, still in their vehicles. Maryland Governor Wes Moore has been speaking directly with families to give them updates. He said supporting them remains his top priority.
We transitioned from search and rescue to recovery. We need to bring a sense of closure and comfort to the families, and we take that very seriously.
Marcia, today, the search continues for 4 other members of that construction crew that plunged into the water when the bridge collapsed.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The CBC's Chris Reyes reporting from Dundalk, Maryland.
This ain't Texas. Ain't no hold 'em.
She gave us this preview after the Super Bowl. Tomorrow we get the rest of Beyonce's new country album. It's called Cowboy Carter. Beyonce released a list of the tracks on her Instagram account. It includes a reference to the groundbreaking country performer Linda Martell. She became the first Black woman to play the Grand Ole Opry. And there's also a hint Beyonce may pay tribute to Dolly Parton on the album. And we'll find out more tomorrow. And that is World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
One step to the right, we headed to the dive bar.
Good morning, Manitoba. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM and 990 AM in Winnipeg, worldwide on the CBC Listen app and on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. I'm Emily Brass, filling in today for Marcy Marcusa, and here's what's still to come on the show. We'll take you inside a machine that's had big economic and cultural significance in Manitoba's Interlake. We're talking about the Bombardier. We're going to hear a bit about the history, why they were first invented by Bombardier back in the 1930s, and how they're still used today on Lake Manitoba. We're also going to hear some new music and get an update on the weather and traffic, so stick around. Lots more to come here on Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. 11 minutes after 8 o'clock, time for news headlines with Megan Ketchison.
Well, get ready to replace that tattered paper health card in your wallet. The province will announce later today that it is replacing paper health cards with a new plastic one. Premier Wab Kinew made that promise to move towards digital health documents last December. And the University of Winnipeg says there's no reason to believe personal information was leaked in what it calls a criminal cyber attack. In a town hall yesterday, the university president said the school shut down some critical systems after it noticed the breach. The university wants to have its systems back up and running next week. It brought in experts to help deal with the situation. The current semester has been extended and exams have been delayed by a week. And we'll have more at 8:30.
Megan, your top story is the best news I've heard all day. My health card is like stained with coffee. It's tattered in a few places. How about you?
Oh, I know. Mine's, it's
about time.
And I'm bringing it all the time because I have two kids. So it's like, here we go.
And which number did you want on which fold of this card? I think it's going to make things much more simple when you check in at the clinic.
When I moved here from Saskatchewan in 1992, I had a plastic card. Just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah, me too. Exactly. Yeah. Thank you, Megan.
All right.
That's Megan Ketchison from the CBC Manitoba News Desk. And joining me now in the studio is our show director, Corey Funk, with a look at the weather and traffic.
I feel like I need to piece mine together with tweezers and gloves, like I'm an archaeologist putting together like an ancient scroll every time.
I know.
It's because it's all like tea stained for some reason and burnt around the edges. What's the deal with that?
It's just like flimsy cardboard for such important information.
Yep. Well, looking to your weather, it's like we're in for a lovely. Actually, I have a test for you, Emily, because I've been talking about it, and I told you it's the easiest to memorize forecast.
Yeah.
Okay, you ready? Here's my quiz for you. So, what's going to be the high today?
+1.
Mm-hmm. What's going to be the high tomorrow?
+1.
What's going to be the high Saturday?
+1.
Oh, what's going to be the high Sunday?
1 degree above zero.
There we go. Perfect. Yes. So it's that's the forecast here in Winnipeg for the weekend. It is going to be varying in terms of what's going on in the sky, though. So sunny today, high of 1. Friday, a little bit of snow we can expect actually tomorrow. Not a lot. Saturday, a bit cloudy. And then Sunday, we get a mix of sun and cloud. But 1 degree right across the board is going to be your highs. It's going to dip down below 0 at night, though, over your Easter weekend here in Winnipeg. And a similar kind of forecast throughout the province as well for the Easter weekend, just kind of hovering around 0 for your highs for much else here in Manitoba. Other than that, looking to your commute, been a fairly smooth commute overall out there. I heard from Dan on a bike earlier that rapid transit is actually pretty smooth, minus the odd icy patch here and there, which I imagine is going to be a puddle by the time he's commuting home. So thanks for that call, Dan. But if you see anything else going on out there on your commute, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Coming up on 8:15, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1. I'm Emily Brass, in today for Marcy Marcusa. Now, Corey, you and I were in the small RM of Saint Laurent in the Interlake a couple weeks ago. Marcy was there too. And, we were visiting that little fishing community as part of our series called Communities in Focus. And I noticed there's hardly a more iconic symbol of that community than the Bombardier.
Man, I love that sound.
Yeah.
And clearly it's a big deal in the community, because I remember Marcy and I went for a drive around, and you not only see bombardiers on people's driveways, but you see these signs that say Bombardier Crossing, like throughout St. Laurent. It's quite something to see. And I'm actually a little jealous, because I actually understand you got to ride in one.
Yes, I got to ride in that one you just heard.
Okay. And so before we kind of get to that ride, like I just want to start with the basics here, because I know a bombardier isn't just your basics snowmobile. So what is a bombardier?
Well, yeah, I had never seen one actually until I came to Manitoba. They kind of look like part snowmobile, part magic bus. Picture a big vehicle. It's got rounded corners and circular porthole style windows, kind of like the ones you might see on a boat or a submarine. And on the bottom are two big tracks in the back, like on a snowmobile or heavy equipment. And in the front, the bombardier sits on two skis that look a bit like snowboards. And this specialized construction means, they can go almost anywhere in the snow and ice. And that makes them really popular with commercial fishers in Saint Laurent. In fact, there are so many bombardiers there that the machines have become part of the community's identity. I spoke about that with one of the counselors of the RM of Saint Laurent, Mo Leclerc.
There's probably somewhere around 40 or 50 of them, I'm told. I know probably physically where I could find 20 in less than half an hour. So, there's quite a few around in a lot of different colors and, stuff like that. So some people call us the capital of bombardiers and also, the Métis capital of at least the country and stuff. You come to St. Laurent, you're going to see some bombardiers. It's a given.
I should also mention that bombardiers are pretty spacious inside. They can hold a lot of people or fish. And, they also have a wood stove on board to keep you nice and toasty, which is really important when you're spending your days out on the ice fishing.
Oh, it's so cool. And I heard there, Mo touched on St. Laurent being a Métis community. So what's the connection actually there between that cultural identity and bombardiers?
Yeah, it's so interesting. I had a chance to speak with a mémère, which means grandmother in Michif French. And I asked her, as an elder, what was it like growing up Métis in St. Laurent? And the first thing she said is, we had a bombardier in the yard. And so, people there used to go out ice fishing with a horse and carriage. And when bombardiers came along, it revolutionized the industry in St. Laurent. And it became so iconic that the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. invited that little community to put a bombardier on display as part of a big First Nations exhibit. Yeah. And it stayed in that museum for 10 years. When it was finally time to bring the bombardier back to St. Laurent, it was Mo who was sent down to get it.
So I drove with my pickup truck and a trailer and brought it all the way back. Well, I can tell you that when I was way south, we turned a lot of heads on the highway. And I actually had people follow me in gas stations and say, what is that thing? Like, what do you do with that? Because they've never seen snow or anything. So it was pretty amazing.
What did you say?
I had to start and tell them, explain that our lakes actually freeze here, so I had to explain that first. And I said, we have that white stuff that they call snow, and then these things travel on there, and people, and it was a lot of fun actually to get to explain to people what they do.
Explaining winter to Americans, that's tough. So they're used in St. Laurent for ice fishing, but what was the original purpose of the bombardier itself?
Well, the first bombardier was designed in Quebec by Joseph Armand Bombardier in 1937, and he got the idea after his child died during a blizzard. The family couldn't reach the hospital because in those days there was no public snow clearing of roads. So Bombardier called them snow coaches, and they were initially used as school buses and ambulances and for delivering mail and supplies during the winter. Mass production started in the 1940s when the coaches were used for wartime needs. But by the end of that decade, municipal snow clearing became the norm and sales dropped dramatically. Attention shifted to Bombardier's newer invention, the Skidoo, and the company stopped making the iconic snow coaches in the late 70s.
Okay, so doing some quick math in my head, then that means that the last ones were made about 50 years ago. So how do they run? Because, that's quite a long time since they've been out of service.
Yeah, well, surprisingly well, but most of the bombardiers out there today aren't running on all the original parts or engine. I got to meet a commercial ice fisher named Mike Chartrand who took us out on that epic tour in his bombardier. So, we went out on the frozen Lake Manitoba. We helped him drill some holes in the ice and pull in the nets and bring in a little catch of fish. And riding in it was like riding in a tank almost. You know, you felt invisible. We went over marshland and snowbanks and out onto the ice. It was like we could go anywhere. And Mike told me he spends a lot of time fixing up his bombardier to keep it running so well, and says, you know, that's what it takes to keep it running smoothly.
If it's maintained properly, if it's in the right person's hands, it is maintained properly, and you get the parts, she'll run forever. Might not look it to you, but the old undercarriage, the motor, the tranny has all been changed brand new. All the bearings underneath, the brass bearings, everything underneath my tracks are new. Everything is maintained properly. If you're a handy person and you can do a lot of work yourself, good. But if you gotta pay somebody to put it all together and get the parts are expensive.
And, you know, when he said it might not look it to you, just picture his bombardier is like light blue with chip paint and rust in lots of spots, and the doors don't match. He's got brand new like metal doors that he bought the metal and got his buddy to do. Anyway, he also put in a new Chevy V8 engine. Wow. And he says he gets all of his parts new, and they're often custom made, and you know, it does take a lot of work for him.
Yeah, and I mean, it also sounds like he said it's a lot of money. It's pretty expensive. So do you think it's actually all worth the effort?
Well, people in Saint Laurent say there's nothing like a bombardier for ice fishing. They say a pickup truck gets stuck, you know, as soon as you get into the deep snow, and a snowmobile won't keep you warm, and it can't haul back hundreds of kilos of fish. But there's also that cultural connection we touched on earlier. You know, Mike says some of his brothers and they're doing things the way their father did and their grandfathers before that, and that's going fishing with a bombardier.
I've been around this since I was a kid. My dad had one when I was a kid already, and I was always hanging around and was just learn as I go, right? It's a Métis fishing community, so a common subject is bombardier around here, right? There's coffee shop talk in the morning. The guys meet up in the morning there all the time too, and that's where you'd sometimes chat about finding the parts and all that, or if the mechanic in town has time for you to fit you in if you got a broken piece or something. So you just try to help the other guy out.
You might even remember that from the other week, Corey, when the show was live at the MTT gas station in Saint Laurent. Some of those guys who were there having breakfast in the diner were talking about the lake and the fishing quota, which actually was reached really early this year, as well as the work they're doing on their bombardiers.
Oh, well, this is so fun. I wish we can go back up there. I really want to ride on a bombardier now. Sounds like a good time.
Oh, it was one of the best adventures. But the video is actually already on our website if you want to see more and get a sense of what it sounds like, how it runs, and it'll also be on the CBC Winnipeg News at 6 on TV.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Emily. I'm looking forward to I'm going to try to live vicariously through you. So if you're wondering what that website is, you just go to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Commotion with Elamin Abdelmahmoud.
It's time to talk about funflation.
Crime Story.
You got one witness who can't be found.
This American Life with Ira Glass.
There are signs that read, see something, say something.
Radio Lab.
What is coming up? What is going wrong, actually?
The Sunday Magazine with Pia Chattopadhyay.
How does the last 24 plus hours complicate or change things?
Telling Stories. Sunday night on CBC Radio 1 and on the Listen app.
23 minutes after 8 o'clock, and you're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg, and on the CBC Listen app and the CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. You can also check us out on our website. Well, in a moment of difficulty, Dee Hernandez sent a vocal line to her producer, not expecting that it would ever see the light of day, but the result is this new song called Blessed.
Woke up this morning feeling like I never felt. Looked out a mirror, thought I saw somebody else. I'm walking tall ahead, I zero guilt. 'Cause who I am today, I built to be mine. 'Cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got pleasures by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze. 'Cause everything works out for me, right my sorrow down the river, and I see, no longer drowning, I'm as strong as I have ever been. The path is clear, blessings coming just for me. Today I must celebrate that I'm free to be mine, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got patience by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got patience by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze. If you fall, girl, you'll recover. Learn your lessons, take them is for free. Today's the day, the only moment. Leave your bag behind, take it from me. Don't be mad, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got patience by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got patience by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. I got patience by the way for me. I make no plans, I flow with the breeze, 'cause everything works out for me, right on time when supposed to be. Blessed by your sugar on that you see. I make no plans, plans just come for me. They come for me.
From St. John, New Brunswick, that was Dee Hernandez with Blessed. It's 8:27, and Corey Funk's back in the studio. I guess we got a call about bombardiers.
Yeah, I had to pop back in pretty much as soon as we finished up our chat about bombardiers in Saint Laurent. We got this call on the listener line.
Hello, just watching your story about bombardiers, and my girlfriend near Verdun was born in a bombardier late February in 1949. Bye.
Oh my gosh. Well, you know, that is like why they were invented by Armand Bombardier, because you couldn't get to the hospital necessarily when there was no snow clearing, right? So in 1949, that kind of lines up. Like it was only around then that they started clearing roads in town. So yeah, wow.
I'm sure he'd be happy to hear a story like that. Hey, wow.
Oh, no kidding. That's so cool.
Bombardiers, they just, play a big role in Manitobans' lives.
Give us more calls. I know the show's almost over, but, you know, we'd love to hear more from you if you got any more bombardier stories.
Yes, I can tell you there's a guy in Gimli. We've had him on the show before. It's usually around this time of year. There's one year we had a ton of snow. He's got a bombardier, and his whole thing was rescuing ice shacks off of Gimli who were like snowed in from that, like a really late snow in March. They got stuck there. He towed them off the ice with his bombardier. So lots of bombardier stories to be told out there in Manitoba.
Well, and that's funny because they also told a lot of stories of people's bombardiers going down.
I imagine
in
there
the
must be a few
shoulder
of those
seasons
as well. Yep.
But apparently, like Lake Manitoba is shallow enough that you can get yourself out and get yourself back to shore.
I would be
I don't know
surprised if
about Lake
somehow they're like
Winnipeg.
submersible as well, and maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it looks like a submarine, so you never know.
Exactly.
Well, thanks for that story, Corey.
Thank you, Emily.
That's our show director, Corey Funk. You're listening to Information Radio on CBC Radio 1, 89.3 FM in Winnipeg. And taking a quick look at the forecast for today, sunny in Winnipeg, high +1, clear tonight, going down to a low of -11. Then tomorrow, snow is on the way. It's going to start to get cloudy in the morning. Then the snow will start in the afternoon. Going to be a bit windy, too, with some gusts up to 40 kilometers an hour, especially around noon. And the high will be +1. A similar outlook for Brandon, mainly sunny today, high -2, a few clouds tonight, and windy with a low of -9. Increasing cloudiness tomorrow with snow starting around noon. But in Brandon, they're expecting a good bit more snow. 5 to 10 centimeters could fall out that way. And there will be those wind gusts midday and a high of -2. Well, time now for the CBC Manitoba News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Megan Ketchison in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's mainly sunny and minus 10, sunny and 1 for today. Well, that tattered old health card in your wallet will soon be a thing of the past in Manitoba. The province will announce later this morning that it will replace the old paper cards with plastic ones and move towards digitizing health records. Premier Wab Kinew promised to make the move back in December. He says the new digital documents will mean healthcare practitioners and patients will be able to access records with a click of a mouse. Winnipeg scientists have created an experimental therapy for an Ottawa area woman, the first in Canada to receive phage treatment for a chronic artificial joint infection that was putting her life at risk. Phages are viruses that only infect bacteria, creating more of themselves until they burst out, looking for more bacteria to kill. Stephen Theriault and his team at Cytophage Technologies in Winnipeg used samples of the bacteria infecting the patient to create a phage specifically for her, and worked with Dr. Marisa Azad at Ottawa Hospital.
You know, a lot of the patients that I see with these infections, they have severe depression, they have suicidal thoughts. Some patients have amputations, chronic pain. It's a terrible quality of life. And for me to be able to say, you know what, there's hope, that's worth more than anything.
Phage therapy is currently not available outside of clinical trials in Canada, but Azad hopes this case will change that. She's already working on another trial with more patients. The University of Winnipeg says there's no reason to believe personal information was leaked in what it calls a criminal cyber attack. U of W President Todd Mondar said at a town hall yesterday the school shut down some critical systems after it noticed the breach. Mondar said the university wants to have its system back up and running by early next week.
Staff has been working around the clock to understand the consequences of the breach and to bring back services in a way that preserves the safety of our entire system and prevents the threat actor from gaining readmittance.
The university did not provide any details as to the nature of the attack. It's brought in experts to help deal with the situation. The current semester has been extended and exams have been delayed by a week. It's getting more difficult for people with mental health and addictions issues to find low-barrier housing in Winnipeg. Last week, we told you that the Adirondack apartment building on Sargent Avenue is up for sale. Now, CBC News has learned 2 other buildings in the West End have been put into receivership and are also up for sale. All 3 properties belong to Patrick Penner or his wife, Karen Harper Penner. The buildings were used by outreach groups to house people from encampments. St. Boniface Street Links is one of the groups that worked with the owners. Executive Director Marion Willis says landlords need to be supported to help keep people housed.
It's actual services in the building to prevent the fires and to prevent the violence and the drug use and so on.
CBC News tried contacting the Penners but did not receive a response. The city councillor for the area says she's worried the loss of these buildings could make homelessness in the neighborhood worse. In Maryland, investigators are going through the data recorder of the cargo ship that collided and destroyed the Baltimore Bridge. They also boarded the vessel yesterday to interview the crew and get an idea what that ship was carrying. NTSB Chair Jennifer Hanady.
56 containers of hazardous materials. That's 764 tons of hazardous materials, mostly corrosives, flammables, and some miscellaneous hazardous materials, which would include lithium-ion batteries.
Some of those materials leaked, leaving a sheen on the river. The NTSB estimates the probe could take up to 2 years. After 11 years of planning, lawsuits, and delays, a proposal to develop the Parker lands in Winnipeg is coming back before City Council. Developer Andrew Marquez has been planning a residential development on the land in Fort Garry since 2013. The city planning officials are now backing the proposal, but Marquez says he's unhappy with some of the recommended changes to the plan. They involve how far away he'll have to build from the CN rail line.
You know, this surprises me because I didn't think there were any issues. It's not 11th hour and 59th minute. It's kind of like the horse is out of the barn.
The plan for Fulton Grove calls for 1,900 units in apartments, townhouses, and detached homes. People in Manitoba's Sudanese community are worried about friends and family in their home country. The civil war in Sudan has triggered what the United Nations calls one of the worst humanitarian crises in recent history. The country has been at civil war since April 2023. The UN says nearly 28 million people in the region are facing acute food insecurity, and 3.7 million children suffer from malnutrition. Ruben Garang is the president of the Council of South Sudanese Community in Manitoba. He's constantly worried about his loved ones back home.
People who are here, shoulder a lot of the burden because you have to do what you can, to take care of your relative, but also it takes a toll on you emotionally because you're dealing with the news constantly, news of displacement, news of killing, news of death.
Garang believes the international community is ignoring the situation in Sudan as it focuses on other conflicts around the world. And that's the CBC News from Winnipeg. You can always find more on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Megan. Have a great holiday long weekend.
You too.
All right. Thank you. That's CBC's Megan Ketchison, and there will be no information radio tomorrow. Instead, you'll hear a program called Some Good. And this pivotal time in media when trust in journalism is wavering. Caroline Hillier is a journalist who makes the news, and Yasser El-Tehan is a guy who avoids the news. So we're going to explore that, contrast that's happening right now in society. Corey, what's going on in traffic before we go?
Really quiet out there. Rapid transit's looking good, according to Dan on a bike. So enjoy the nice puddly weather coming up your way.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
That's CBC's Corey Funk. Thanks to all the hard work you did this week, Corey, as well as the rest of the team. Abby Adiemi, Chloe Friesen, Isa Kixon, Shanali Vidal, Kalkadan Mulagetu, Marshall Hodgins, Sierra Sanders, Jim Agapito, and Dylan Longhurst. May McKillop is behind the glass at the controls. Brad Lillies is producing our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. I'm Emily Brass. I had a great time filling in. Hope you all have a long weekend and get to have some time, some rest with your family. Take care.